Ah, yes. Here we are. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode, another Sunday night. Not a Schizo Sunday. We're going to have a Manic Monday tomorrow, I guess. So, look forward to that. This evening, though, I'd like to go over some news that I missed. The last 2 days I haven't been streaming. We had the congressional hearing, the ICIG meeting there. And some interesting insights into the phenomena, potentially. To do with the nature of the phenomena, maybe. Visitors. Might be interdimensional. Interesting. And then the other big topic, Disease X. That's all over Twitter, and I thought I would cover it. I've been covering this bullshit, so more bullshit in the horizon, maybe. Who knows? Time will tell. Tune in. Find out. Fuck around, find out. For everybody watching these VODs, thank you, first of all. Secondly, for people watching who are not followed, please consider giving me a follow. I'm trying to get the follower count up. I'm posting these to YouTube now. I will be posting the last couple to YouTube tomorrow evening. So they'll be up there. So yeah, I'm gonna try to do this, try to make some more content as well. So working on stuff, trying to work. But yes, we're gonna do Word Trigger. Welcome, Fafo. Saw, dude. Let's pull this up here. Here we are. Mango Cat Plays. Welcome, Ron. So, fuck, this is a meme. Your Word Drinker for you and everybody else up in the north there. There's been some very cold weather that's made its way around. Oh, fuck around, find out. Yeah, there you go. Abbreviated version. Yeah. Hell yeah. Mango Cat Plays. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard she's quite cold, but holy fuck, but thought this was kind of a meme. There was a guy who posted something on Twitter that blew up. It was a Tesla driver who got stuck because the charging station he was at wasn't being powered. Or it was taking excessively long and then it lost power or something. So, well, the Alberta government asked people not to charge their electric cars due to the extreme cold straining the grid. CBC publishes this article. Brilliant. 1.3 billion of your tax dollars, ladies and gentlemen. Electric cars, this is in Saskatoon, the best vehicle in frigid temperatures, Saskatoon advocates say. Hannah Spray. Hannah, I would have researched a little bit more before posting that. Saskatchewan may be in a deep freeze, but EV drivers say they stay toasty warm while charging their car for 5 hours in between fucking stops. So, yeah. Fuck. Pretty ridiculous shit. There's some more bullshit coming out of Canada. Yeah. I mean, it's just fucking... They're a meme. They're a meme. So... Anyway, we know that. This guy's starting, this Vivek guy's starting to kind of come apart of the seams a little bit. I'm watching some other stuff in regards to him. Very well-spoken guy, clearly. Very driven, dedicated guy. Very disciplined. And here, I thought this was kind of interesting. Let's see here. Is Justin Trudeau a puppet? Vivek thinks so. He says the idea that Trudeau is actually calling the shots is a joke. He's like a Klaus Schwab Jr., sort of a Klaus Schwab disciple. And I think that he is somebody who is a useful puppet. It's not that this guy is some sort of shining intellect that is somehow visionary in his own right. He's not. He's a pawn for a managerial class. That's exactly what he is, though. He doesn't have his own opinions on things. He doesn't speak very eloquently. He speaks as if he's memorized some lines and gone up and he's doing some kind of soliloquy. So, and it's spot on, but I mean it's fairly obvious to most people, I think. But I thought it was a Trump hat he had on there for a second. It says truth. That's his slogan. His campaign. Again. What a sad fucking statement when your campaign slogan in 2024 is just truth. Holy fuck. I mean, that should just be the baseline, for Christ's sake. Like, here we are trying to run our campaigns. I tell the truth. Great. One of his opponents at Haley, like, man, there are they got some real NPCs up there this fucking time. Like, they, like fucking side quest NPCs. Like, the worst kind. It's bad. So anyway, just thought I'd share that for everybody up here in Canada that just despises Trudeau. Oh God, yeah, fucking craziness. Anyway, yeah. Oh, dear God, yeah. Let's see. Read this and take careful note. So this is getting into one of the topics here this evening. Rabbit, welcome. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. The EV thing is just fucking. The EV thing is just fucking. I don't know, just a meme. I'm helping the environment. Meanwhile, all the batteries, all the cobalt in batteries, mined by fucking slave children in Africa. It's kind of like people in the West, you know, with their iPhones and shit. And meanwhile, like, kids are making them in these Chinese facilities that have suicide nets outside the windows because so many of the fucking workers there regularly just jump out the windows and kill themselves. It's just like, we just live in this, like, delusion. It's very frustrating, you know. We should be pushing back against these kinds of people in these countries who are doing these kinds of things to their people. So, anyway. Electricity capable alert province. Wow, really? It mentioned not charging EVs. Wow. Well, like, wasn't it minus 45 without the windshield or something? Like that's fucking, that's insanity. Like, that's so cold. Like, you'd be dead pretty fucking quickly outside in that. Yeah. Man, fuck. Yeah. Stay warm. Stay warm, guys. Fuck. That is actual insanity. We never get temperatures here that low. We'll get, if it gets to minus 20, it's bad. Usually. Yeah. But, harp. Yeah, fuck. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah, man. Well, that here where we are in the East Coast, we don't have the tent thing set up for people. We got people sleeping on park benches and shit, like, and they're freezing to death. There was a guy that was literally frozen to the ground, froze to death, in southern New Brunswick somewhere, fucking like a month ago or 2-3 weeks ago. Like, so they were talking about trying to get camps, like encampments set up for these people. But yeah, it's just fucking, it's just nuts. Like, I'm gonna change the music over here. But yeah, I mean, it's fucking terrible. And you know, there are some people who try to argue, being like, well, all those people are shitheads and they kind of deserve to be there. It's like, you know, is there a portion of these people that are shitheads? Yes. Are there a portion that are just going through hard times? Yes, as well. And again, it's like, you know, just treating people with compassion, right? Even if they're a bit of a shithead, like not letting them fucking freeze to death, like. You know, here, you know, all these cities, there's a lot of real estate that we could probably house these people in. The worry, obviously, is that they go there and try to burn it down or something and then blame you. But I don't know, man. It's like fucking, it's a difficult question. At the very least, so I think people shouldn't be freezing to death. That's just not debatable. So, yeah, fuck, yeah. If it's around here, at least whatever. Yeah, Creekley, yeah, fucking Creekley knows what the city's like where we are. Yeah. Oh. Man, oh man. Well, you think they just start burning some of that oil, huh? Just start burning some of that oil up there, huh? Fuck. Smoozy, welcome. So, fuck this. These are kind of out of order slightly, probably. I got fucking like 300 tabs open again up here. But this has been the talk of the town, as you can see on Twitter. Everyone's talking about this. With the ZZX all over the news, you must wonder, is this the final attempt to push us over the edge? We're just a few months away from the World Health Assembly meeting at WHO. Hashtag exit the WHO. So, listen to this article now. This is an article. Some of these to pay for. I'm just like, but anyway, I thought I'd go over. There's a couple things here where fucking Alex. So this is one of the articles here, the expose. So I thought this was a pretty good article actually that they did here. Now this was in August that this was done. So this is, you know, this has been talked about. This has been talked about off and on for the last couple of months. But the Davos meeting is coming up this week about this topic, this subject. So kind of important to cover again. And some people claiming that potentially, kind of like the event 201 that happened in October preceding the coronavirus, this Clad X happened in 2018, so kind of way before, but kind of similar. Now, it's important to distinguish or note as well that X simply means unknown. So some people are going on about, well, this disease X is going to hit us. It's disease and then X, meaning unknown, meaning like it's a placeholder like for unknown. So kind of like Planet X. It's like, it's the next one out there, but it's unknown is how they're using this. So there isn't a disease X floating around, although technically speaking there could be, but yeah. So, we are hearing that UK scientists have begun developing vaccines as an insurance against a new pandemic caused by an unknown disease X. In the same way as COVID-19 was rehearsed at Event 201, it would seem that disease X was also rehearsed at Clade X. Could it be that we are being prepared for a new pandemic? Sky News reported yesterday that disease X is an unidentified potential future pandemic, and that there is a team of more than 200 scientists from the UK carrying out work to prepare for it. The state-of-the-art vaccine research facility. So this is in the UK. They're preparing for the next pandemic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're trying to get ahead of potentially, a solution to it. So they did this tabletop exercise. It was called Clade X. A day-long pandemic tabletop exercise that simulated a series of National Security Council convened meetings of 10 U.S. government leaders played by individuals prominent in the fields of national security or epidemic response. Drawing from actual events, Clade X identified important policy issues and preparedness challenges that could be solved with sufficient political will and attention. These issues were designed in a narrative to engage and educate the participants and the audience. Lessons learned were distilled and shared broadly from the exercise. There's an interesting little tidbit here in regards to this that I thought was really interesting. So just to get into, I guess, what it is, patients, including U.S. military members, were showing up at the hospital in Landstuhl with fever, cough, and confusion. Some patients were ending up on respirators. Others fell into comas. Initially, it looked like a viral encephalitis, but it soon became clear that the virus was something new and lethal. It had the ability to be transmitted from person to person through the air, a 5 to 7 day incubation period, at a high fatality rate. So it came out of Venezuela, then it made its way to Germany, then it started moving around the globe. So the mystery virus with no known antivirals, no licensed vaccines against it, and a pandemic potential got a name, Clade X. So important to note this is in 2018 before the coronavirus blew up. This is the part that I thought was really interesting in regards to this. Yeah. Pandemic. Yeah. So by June 1st, the FBI learned that a splinter group of an international organization focused on, get this, overpopulation, a brighter dawn, was behind the attacks. One member of the group, a para-influenza researcher from the U.S., could not be located. So they found out that the people that released this onto the world were a part of effectively a cult, an international organization focused on overpopulation, otherwise known as eugenicists. People who believe there are too many people on the planet and that the numbers should come down. And there's another group, an international organization of people that are effectively calling for that when they're trying to take nitrogen out of the fertilizers, out of the soil, which is going to cut food production in half. And they're called the WEF. And they were warning, like 2-3 months ahead of the coronavirus pandemic that, a big tabletop simulation for coronavirus pandemic just in case this breaks out. And just coincidentally, it fucking broke out. Wow. Yeah, exactly. Word marker. Yeah. Yeah, it's just fucking, it's just like, it's just fucking nonsense. Like, anyway, I thought that was an interesting little tidbit there. Now, there have been terror cells in the past that have had this intention. There was the attack. Someone had brought this up. There was an attack in Japan years ago, and it was a part of a cult, and they had, I think it was Digi told me about that. Someone had told me about that, where they had some pretty accredited people, like researchers, on their payroll, and their intention was to like literally destroy the human race. Like that was their goal. So yeah, maybe it wasn't. Yeah, maybe it's something we were watching. I can't remember. Yeah, but it was pretty sketch. And so this is the meme here. It's just people for some reason have a hard time believing that these kinds of people can't be in influential positions. They can't tell you they care, and then secretly behind the scenes, they really don't. Oh my God. Gaslighting. Manipulation. Right? Just on a grander scale. Yeah. Yeah. Fuck. I can confirm natural nitrogen works well. Oh, nice. Nice, man. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have an argument. There's an argument for against using artificial, like using nitrogen artificially and inserting it into the soil. And, but you can't just stop using it when we're relying on it. So, like, that's part of the problem. And if you're still calling for that, that's a problem. And, like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, so, well, it does make sense if your goal is to just create disruption and lower the population. So, anyway, I think I posted this in the Discord. Everyone wants to go through. This is the entire, it's like 5 or 6 hours in total. This is the entire tabletop exercise. People, again, tying this because it's Clade X. Then they're talking about disease X. X just means unknown. So, yeah. Anyway. On to the next post here. We're just on to that post. Oh, this was interesting too, though. Why is the U.S. Congress involved with creating a bill called Disease X Act back in June of 2023? That slipped totally under the radar, purposefully. Disease X is a mystery contagion that the World Economic Forum is having a meeting about on January 17, 2024. That they say could have 20 times more fatalities than COVID. The origins of Disease X go all the way back to 2018 in an article from the WEF. Not a coincidence. You better believe this is pre-planned. This is this guy's opinion, not mine. They are working on bringing the sick plan to fruition, likely to derail the election against Donald Trump and ensure a repeat of 2020 happens. Disease X could cause the next pandemic, according to the WHO, or Ebola, SARS, or Nipah. Is this smoking gun proof of nefarious government collusion with the WEF in the World Health Organization? They always tell you what is coming. Fug. A couple different viruses people have brought up. Nipah is one of them. Marburg is another one that people have brought up potentially that could cause a pandemic. But that I actually was speaking to a guy on YouTube, and I think he's a virologist. He's a highly accredited dude, and he was covering an outbreak of Marburg in Africa, and somewhere in Africa, I commented on his video, and I said, hey, is there any possible way this virus could like become airborne and cause a pandemic? And he gave me a very, very long, detailed explanation as to why it definitely could not. But then maybe if someone weaponized it and caused it to go airborne, that could. But anyway, so wasn't really sure about the Marburg thing, but I don't fucking know, like Disease X Act of 2023. Here we go. This is it here. Preparing for Disease X. This is a World Economic Forum post. So, Representative Lori Trahan introduced. Interesting. And then this is a World Economic Forum meeting here, which is taking place on, that would be Wednesday. This Wednesday. With fresh warnings from the World Health Organization that unknown disease X could result in 20 times more fatalities than the coronavirus pandemic. What novel efforts are needed to prepare healthcare systems for the multiple challenges ahead? Interesting. Again, are they telegraphing that they're going to do this? Are they simply just worried about the next one? Hard to say. This guy is calling shit out, supposedly. He's saying, it looks like Nipah is very likely to be the next pandemic. Came across this article from Gavi, the next pandemic Nipah virus from March 2021. Interesting. Anyway, just for people to digest and for Alex to make money off of, because it's what Alex does best, is make memes and make money. Alex is like slowly opening his shirt up more and more. It's very interesting. I don't know where it's going to go. It might go back to full shirtless. I remember he did back in the day when he first released the Alpha Male Super Vitality formula. He did this fucking like plug for it, and he just like mid-interview with the doctor who worked on it, just ripped his fucking shirt off and started running around screaming. And the guy was just like, oh, okay. Like, if that's not if that doesn't sell you on it, then I don't fucking know what will. I mean, I don't know what the fuck was in it. Fucking horse milk or something. Must have been. But anyway, fucking Hogan style. That's exactly right, man. The Davos group starts meeting in just a couple days, and what is front and center on their agenda? Disease X. I'm curious how Alex is gonna spin this.
Davos group starts meeting in just a couple days. They've already got their operation going on a mountaintop, so their staff and crew and people are already getting there in Switzerland. But they are the official mouthpiece of the UN, and last year officially merged with the UN at a National Security Council level. They're not on the National Security Council, but the UN Secretary General said policy will be decided on with them. And remember what Klaus Schwab says, we penetrate half the cabinets. We control half the governments of the world. And what is front and center on their agenda? Number one.
Okay, again, Alex, that he's penetrated half of the Western governments around the world. That's a little bit audacious. I don't know if he said that. I think in the Canadian cabinet, yes. Many people within Trudeau's cabinet are a part of his Young Leader program. That's extremely worrying. That's extremely problematic. And I think CSIS should definitely be keeping a close eye on that. They probably fucking aren't. But they should be. Everyone should be. But whether they've taken control of like half of all Western democracies, or I think he's implying like half of all world governments. That's a little bit audacious. That's like exaggerated, definitely. But yeah, we shouldn't underestimate. That's true, Naaman. We shouldn't. We also shouldn't exaggerate. I think it's walking that fine line. Alex likes to just step right over that line and scream.
They say disease X is imminent and is going to kill 20 times what COVID supposedly did. And then they give a number of 50 million. Now, what is disease X? That's a name for a disease never existed. And if you talk to the virologists, the experts, they say that's not known for hundreds of years. And most of the diseases that they have recently found, they find later in bodies they dig up, existed before. And it's very rare to find a new disease. So when you hear disease X, they mean the laboratory-made synthetic viruses gain-of-function operations.
Now, again, if you want to be really specific, X is usually used to indicate simply unknown. So, like in which I like to talk about here, Planet X, right? Well, Planet X has kind of two implications. X for 10, the 10th planet, which is technically what it was going to be, but it was also inserted in there to mean unknown. So by them calling it disease X, I don't know specifically if they're strictly like if it's strictly they're trying to imply a gain of function virus, but
so now they are in a crescendo with corporate media, the UN, the WEF, Bill Gates, the New World Order saying that the release of a new virus is imminent and is going to happen. Now, they did this just months before they released COVID-19 that was made in a lab, that was 5 viruses combined, that did cause respiratory illnesses if you didn't have enough vitamin D. Yep. But they made it synthetic so they could own the vaccine response that they'd already made. And that all came out later. We'll be going over it again tonight.
I mean, this is a problem with this, though. Like, again, it's likely extremely complicated, and just saying they is difficult because I don't know like who they are necessarily. Like it's, you know, I guess the boogeyman. That's kind of like that's kind of what Alex is trying to get at with this. But like it's oversimplified a bit, and sometimes it helps in talking about this. But you kind of, when talking about this stuff in particular, need to be really like hyper specific, and that we don't know really honestly who they are, how many of them are there, and like how intentional every step of this was along the way. Like he's implying intent with the response here. And I think, again, you need to be careful because clearly there was some kind of intent here with the release, I think. That's it's hard to debate against that, honestly. You could maybe go with the accident, but I don't, but now the response is something that can be debated, of course. So, again, pushing back slightly on some of Alex's claims, but he's got a narrative, and I don't think objectively, like, his narrative is wrong. I think probably, but it's very loosely put together, which I'd find problematic sometimes. Yeah. What's stopping anyone from using an ice core to resurface a fossil of Ast virus? Yeah, well, that happened in Russia too, right? We covered that here, where they pulled out a virus that was long extinct and is extremely deadly, actually. It had a permafrost, and they brought it back to life, I think. Or they're fucking around with it. That was in Russia, though. Yeah. Yes, exactly, yeah.
We have experts throughout the week joining us. But the Indians scanned it, others scanned it with their $1 billion CRISPR machines and said back in February of 2020, this was made in a lab. And the media tried to poo-poo it, but later admitted, no, it was made in a lab. Not out of some bat cave or some wet market grocery store where they sell live animals.
Sorry, not to keep pausing this. That's an absolutely ridiculous explanation. That's a complete ignorance. That's a complete ignorance to so many other lines of evidence. I mean, you'd have to literally be delusional at this point to think that just anyway. So
didn't come from a turtle or a bat or anything or a porcupine. So they're running the same propaganda they ran, but even more intensely before they released it last time. And Fauci bragged, Trump will soon be challenged by a novel virus. They said, we're going to blow up the old regulatory system of actually testing things. And once this new virus comes out, he said in 2018 and 19, we will use it to then roll out all these new Frankenshots that aren't even classical vaccines, that are DNA reprogramming systems.
Again, no, Fauci did say that, which is fucked. Back in, what do you say, 2018? You can still read the article, actually, where he said that Trump during his campaign could anticipate a pandemic. That, again, that's pretty fucking sus, right? Like, but then again, about the DNA reprogramming, it's like, oh my God, Alex, there's a lot of debate going on right now with all this stuff, but it's the conviction that he's speaking with on some of the stuff where it's like, in his heart, I guess that's what he feels these things are. So, yeah. Yes, I think it comes from magic blocks. Fuck yeah.
We pointed that out 4 years ago. That's what it was. They said, no, you're lying. Now I've got newscast with the UN, with the WHO saying, yes, we're now going to change your DNA with these new shots. There'll be no approval. We're just going to make you take it. They have legislation introduced to the Congress for, quote, disease X. So when you hear disease X, that means the gain of function, the manipulation of viruses, splicing different families of viruses together, taking viruses that are only in animals and making them where they can jump into humans, making them where they're more airborne, where they're more communicable. There's been very little corporate media coverage of the hearings the last few years of Fauci admitting all of this is going on, trying to deny its gain of function, but saying, yeah, we soup up viruses. Now, we just put an image on screen from the early 1990s. That's a real video. If you're a TV viewer, it's a mouse with a giant human ear growing on its back, a third the size of its whole body. Now, that was done in the 70s, declassified in 1990. I've covered that mouse story probably 400 times or more, probably 500 times.
It's a very Alex
The reason that's important
story.
is, now listen to me carefully. We're about to do the deep dive on Disease X. They took humanized mice, the US government, the Chinese government, the Australian government, the British government, this is all admitted, put human genes into them so they respond just like humans. So it's like you're testing on a human. Same effect. And have got a 100% kill rate with the viruses they've cooked up. So when you see Bill Gates laughing and smirking and saying, look, if you didn't like COVID, something a lot worse is coming, he.
Bill Gates did say that. It's fucked. The guy is fucked. And yes, that was recent gain of function they're doing in China, where it was a virus that attacked the nervous system, I think, of the mice. Again, the mice are similar to humans, but like they're not humans. And it did have a 100% kill rate. So, yeah, I think it was like 20 mice or something. But again, like, should they be doing that fucking research? No. They shouldn't. That's fucked. If that ever got out, like, but apparently it's not something that can go airborne either. So, like, just to highlight that, it was a positive glitch in the Matrix. It's got a glitch in Alex's Matrix, right? The most entertaining Matrix that you could possibly live in, actually. Yeah. There's in a short period of time, what kind of makes sense, but he kind of just jumps fighter and accusations. That's exactly it. Yeah, it's exactly it, man. He's just jumping on again. So what he's doing is he's saying, this is Bill Gates' virus. What they did in China with that gain of function. This is Disease X. They're going to try and kill you with this. Buy Alpha Male Super Vitality. Boost your immune system now. Do they have Alpha female Vitality? They probably do. But, you know, it's like... And then in regards to that virus that supposedly killed all the mice, 100% kill rate, it's not something that I think can go airborne like coronavirus, if I recall correctly. So it's like those little minute details you only get if you actually read the fucking paper. And not just the headlines, right? It's those little things that are like, you know, that can make all the difference. And they're like, oh. It's like, yes, no, that specific virus probably technically could not create a pandemic, but they're still fucking around making these, like, you know, zombie viruses that are horrific. But that's not the one. But then see this is what he does, though. This is what he does. Yeah, again, it's like Wartringer saying, he jumps to these conclusions and then packages it all up into fear porn, and he sells it to you. That's my problem with Alex. Again, he sounds the alarm on this shit, but I don't know. He's too desperate to just get it out there and spit it out. But the ability to sprint airborne, well, that's the thing. I mean, maybe, Naaman, and that's where I guess if they could do that, then maybe. But if I can recall, I don't think... Well, I don't know, though. I'm not a virologist either. So maybe they could edit it and it could go airborne. Maybe that is a problem. But the specific virus they were using, I don't think is something that could. So then that couldn't in and of itself. But again, yeah, maybe you're right. If it does go airborne, that's a problem. But like those little stipulations are things I think that Alex should stipulate. Again, it's like, if they do this to this, then it's a problem. It's like this inherently probably isn't going to be a problem. It's if this is edited and going forward. But I guess his whole thing about the gain of function, he's trying to kind of like just lump it all into one.
And you'll
thing.
stay locked down. You'll behave yourself when the new virus comes. We have Klaus Schwab saying this. We have his daughter, who's on the board of the WEF. We've got her saying it. I've got the receipts, overhead shot. You see these 3 stacks right here? Excuse me, 4 stacks? There's his daughter saying it. I got Klaus Schwab saying it too. Right there in that stack. Look at all these other stacks. And guess who else I have? I have undoubtedly the most popular, loved online doctor in the world. He gets hundreds of millions of views a week. And until now, they weren't censoring him. Now they are. They took this video off YouTube.
He is a nurse practitioner. He's a PhD in nurse practitioner. He's a PhD nurse practitioner. He's not technically a doctor, although I guess actually technically he is, but not like an MD. He's like a professor. Anyway, It's again, I know what Alex is trying to do.
Dr. John Campbell out of the UK. Very respected. And he basically comes out, well, he didn't come out, he came out and said, clearly they're engineering this. Clearly they're releasing it to take control of society. It's all illegal, it's gain of function. And when you hear disease X, they're talking about diseases that don't exist because they are making them. Ladies and gentlemen, and the WF says, prepare, it's imminent. It's all about to happen right as the UN tries to ram through.
Again, this headline, even John Campbell's video, which he took down actually, explains that this disease X doesn't exist in any medical textbooks. No. Disease X is not a disease. Disease X is simply saying what is the next disease that will cause a pandemic. Not that I'm trying to defend these fucking idiots who clearly have something cooking, right? Clearly there's something cooking in the background here. Like you're talking about the Agenda 2030 people with their intent is to make sure that everyone other than themselves owns nothing and is happy with that. So, but you know, disease X means unknown. So it's not going to appear in a medical textbook. It's simply just what is the next thing. So then like a little bit confused here. Yeah. It'd be funny if they were actually talking about Twitter. Fuck. Yeah, actually though. Yeah. I'm assuming many of these people think that's what Twitter is a disease, because it's literally the only place where people are openly kind of putting together the little pieces of all their bullshit and calling them out for it. And honestly, at this point, like the traction, the views and stuff that some of these posts get from some of these content creators is obscene. Like they would outpace these mainstream media outlets many times over. Like some of these big, like, I mean, what I think, Elon's got so many followers. It's insane. Like one post that he posts would get fucking 100 times the traffic of like a CBC article, if not 1,000 times in a day. It's so anything he touches instantly is just like front and center of so many. It's hugely problematic if you're a group of people trying to control the narrative right now, which is like, how do you contend with it? And like they can't, other than like shutting down the fucking internet at this point. I don't know. Like, I don't know, Alex is like, this is gonna happen, but he has it already. That's the thing about Alex covers all this stuff, right? And that's, I guess, the benefit of him just pepper spraying you with all this information is he talks about every little schizo detail. It just, for me personally, sometimes, which I think many people here agree, it's the detail in which he talks about that I have an issue with.
They're treating.
Sunday morning, I caused Tom and Margaret. Sorry, 800K views. Holy shit, man, that's insane.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's happening. 2 years in the making, and we didn't plan it like this because we didn't know, to release Alex Jones' New World Order Wars. That's all about fighting Epstein and Clinton and Hillary and the deep state and the pedo rings. Whole levels just dealing with that, because that's the truth of how they operate. And now the game went on Steam, the biggest online platform of video games in the world, 150 million users a week, and it already shot to #1. So find the link to Steam at alexjonesgame.com or search Alex Jones New World Order Wars at Steam. And
I already played it on stream, actually, did you? I have bought it. I do have it. Yeah, I can play it again. It was not very good, but it was like $20. No, man, it was like super quick. Like it's like some just like really quickly thrown together game that I think I beat in like 20 minutes. Like it was funny. It's worth maybe like $5. Yeah. So maybe you can get it on sale on Steam or something. But oh fuck. Seriously, Alex Jones, David Icke, Johnny Mac with Alan Watts. Oh man, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Well, we can get 3 of those people that are still alive in one room, War Drinker. That would definitely be. I think that'd be. I don't know. I think Jordan Peterson might have a brain aneurysm. Talking with Alex and David. I really think he might. I would bet that he does. But fucking still interesting, yeah. Oh yeah, we're drinking. Yeah, you were here. Yeah, it was pretty fucking ridiculous. Yeah. Listen to or paid attention to this guy before. Why does he sound like a washed up wrestler trying to reclaim glory? Oh yeah. He's just been screaming at the mic, I think, Hendricks, the last 25 years. Yeah, he's a bit of a he definitely shills a lot of shit. He's more of like a meme, I guess, in like the conspiracy world. But yeah, you know, dear God. How many? His follower count's blowing up now that he's on here. You get 2 million, I guess. It's not bad, you know. But he had a vocal cord injury when he was younger, I guess. He taught. Really? Is that why? I think he he talks constantly. Like he just screams constantly. Like that would destroy your voice box. Yeah. 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 He was cool. Alan would keep it shit. That's true though. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, if only we could channel the other two, Mac and Watts. But yeah, I can watch Alex because I enjoy him for the meme. I have a really hard time watching David Icke. I've tried to watch him a couple times on here, and man, I just tap the fuck out real quick. Like I just can't, you know. And David's had some good insights over the years. I mean, he's not a stupid guy. You know, a problem, reaction, solution. I think that's a really good, you know, observation in regards to some of this bullshit that's gone on. That's something David coined. But like, man, the reptilians, as someone who enjoys reading scholarly things, and particularly has an interest in Mesopotamian history, and also alternative history and alternative Mesopotamian history, David's is like on another level of fucking crack smoking. Like, I don't know how the fuck he threw those threads together. Like that Credo Mutswa video, by the end of watching, I was like, man, oh fucking man. The whole so David's COVID thing, right? So how David got kicked off, I think, of Twitter and all media platforms, was he was telling people while all this stuff was going on that the virus actually wasn't real and that it was just 5G. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Like, we're having a hard enough time trying to convince people that this got at a lab and is gain of function research, which it is, and which it did. We don't need David saying it's not even real, it's 5G. It's like, okay, just slow the fuck down. Like, there are tons of highly accredited people sounding the alarm on that and being like, we knew this was coming. We knew these idiots were playing around with this for years, like a decade or more, right? And these are virologists. These are techs that worked on some of this tech behind it. You know, David has no background to fucking talk about like fucking viruses. Like, how is he qualified to say this is 5G? Like, man, I just don't fucking, I don't know. I mean, should they have banned him off of all platforms for misinformation? It was misinformation. Should he be banned for it? I don't know, but I don't fucking know, man. Yeah. I like David is open-minded as fuck, though. Yeah, he is, and you know, he called out Jimmy Savile like way back, like and part of that open-mindedness and courage. He's a fuckload of courage, you know, huge amounts of courage, you know, and he dabbled in ufology for a little bit. Credo, for people that don't know, that he's the South African shaman. Mutwa, sorry, I was calling Mutswa. He's since passed away. Yeah, but he spoke about how people in his village had encounters with strange beings and that they were being abducted by them. And I mean, those were just anecdotal accounts of people going through that, and you know. But then David ran off and turned it into like, well, the Queen is a blue blood. The blue bloods trace their history back to Mesopotamia, and they are royalty because of this blue blood, because it's from the blood of the gods, and the gods must be reptilians. It's like, okay. But sometimes he's so open his brain falls out, I think, in my opinion. But in regards to Jimmy Savile, man, like, focus, please. Focus. There we go. In regards to Jimmy Savile, that was a big call out. And like that whole narrative, which I don't really like to talk about a lot, although it's out in the world. Like, this guy was the definition of probably evil. For people that don't know who he was a BBC radio host. And like just generally a massive piece of shit. Just to give people a TLDR on his history here. He was a massive child molester, pedophile. He volunteered at children's hospitals so he could spend alone time in the morgue with the kids' dead bodies. Like, that's the degree of fucked we're dealing with here. This guy. So, David, having worked at the BBC as a journalist, had heard internally that this guy was fucked. And David in the 90s obviously went through like a woo-woo awakening experience and said, you know what? I've just told everybody I'm the son of God and that the reptilians are running the planet. Jimmy Savile's a fucking pedophile. Turned out that last one was fucking true, right? Which, again, not one of those fucking rumors that have been circulating around. And now in hindsight, people looking through this guy and this guy's history, just so many fucking red flags. And also best buds with this guy, right? And then that started opening up a whole other can of worms. Divinormous, welcome, man. Thank you. Welcome, bro. Good to see you. Yeah, man, it's a villain hair. He really fucking does. Like, yeah, implicated. I'm pretty sure. Oh man, and you know, it's like, who potentially implicated in some of this bullshit? Like, and this is where the rabbit hole goes real dark for a while, like pitch fucking black, and it gets very unsettling and very disorienting when you realize that this guy got a bunch of awards. Like, these guys were best fucking buds, would go on hunting trips together. You know, like they were deeply entwined, and that's extremely unsettling. So like, man, I don't know, it's just fucking. So that's some of the stuff that David had the courage to face. And so, you know, David, although he's had many accusations, and he's had accusations of anti-Semitism for a long time, I don't think he actually is at all. There was an incident in Australia someone had mentioned to me, and I don't think he's not actually. His whole reptilian line by some people they think is implying like Jewish people. It's not. He literally means aliens, like literally aliens. So I don't think he's just still kind of a crazy guy. Similar with Harvey Weinstein here in Hollywood. Everyone knew how bad it was for years before it broke to the public. Well, yeah, man, that's exactly right. That's exactly right, Serpentine. Yeah. I mean, Jimmy was definitely on another level compared to some of these people. Like, I don't throw around the word satanic lightly, right? Because like I think the whole thing with Satanism is just like fucking a bit of a miscommunication. But if we're talking about ethically like evil people, that would be one way to describe this guy. I mean, I had to tap out on the documentary actually when it got to the point about him volunteering at the children's hospitals. Like, I was just like, okay, I felt sick, literally. Like, and it's very disorienting, you know, because if it's like, how bad are things really, right? And that's one of the things. It's like, you know, you see very famous people in these kinds of circles. A lot of them have a hard time with substance abuse issues, and it's like, why is that? Is there something? I mean, there's plenty of drugs around, right? You don't have a lot of better things to do. You're rich. You got all this time on your hands. But at the same time, too, it's like, is there something else they're encountering, right? And when they're rubbing up against, like, are things really this bad? Something famously that Stanley Kubrick had mentioned as well, right before he died. And the last movie that he made was Eyes Wide Shut, I think, right? Is that what it's called? Eyes Wide Shut, which had Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise. And it's about this kind of cult that runs the world, really. And Stanley had mentioned that the world is run by a bunch of satanic pedophiles. Holy fuck. Dear God, my son. What's going on there? Yeah. I mean, I don't want it to be that bad, really. I don't get paid to look into it to that degree. There's a level of courage involved. And then there's unknowns, too. Like, yeah, man. Doing good here on the East Coast. Many sisters. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. I think that's kind of what it was. Yeah. That's what I think it was, Serpentine. Yeah, there was kind of weaponized at that. I witnessed that. So David came to Canada a decade ago at least. David and Alex Jones had a kind of tumultuous relationship where at first Alex thought David was a fucking idiot because he thought the Queen was a reptile. But then Alex saw all the money David was making selling out the O2 in London. And he said, oh, wait a second. He's got to come on InfoWars. And so he came on InfoWars and they became buddies. And David started doing like tours around North America. And he made a stop in Vancouver. He was doing a talk in Vancouver, one of his shows. And these shows, they were like fucking 10-hour long shows. Man, like they're fucking insane. David would put on like 10 or 11 hours straight. Like, I don't know what he's talking about the whole time, but he was setting up for this whole thing, the Queen's a reptile, right? from Alpha Draconis or wherever the fuck. And it was either CTV or CBC, I can't remember, but they had David on for an interview because he was speaking, but they very slyly also brought in, I think it was a professor of psychology at one of the schools there, and the idea was that this guy's going to psychoanalyze David because he must be insane. And the guy's opinion, the whole hit piece, was that his whole reptilian narrative about the Queen and stuff, what David's actually doing is he's like psychologically disturbed, and what he really means by the reptilian thing are Jewish people. And then David was just sitting like, no, I'm not insane. Like I think that these are aliens. And like they couldn't understand that. I was like, no. Like he really means aliens. That's what he's like. He's in the woo with this. Like, yeah. Where he hinted at the essay that happens with a minor artist. Oh really? Oh man, yeah. Fuck, it's so fucked. Like I just like, yeah. Dan Schneider is in the U.S. version. Oh man, I've seen those fucking. Oh my god, I've seen those pictures of that guy. Yeah. It's yeah. I think Stanley Kubrick clearly knew something. I clearly had brushed shoulders with maybe some kind of force, right, that controlled things. And anyway, he died, I think, during the making of this movie, actually, which was interesting. Again, he was an older guy here at this time too, so cosmic coincidence, maybe. Makes a movie about this like shadowy group running things. Dies during the filming of it. Coincidence, maybe. You know, who knows, right? Like, yeah. Yeah. It's just like fucking. It's a young man. No. He wasn't that. He was an old man here, I think. How old was he when he died? Oh yeah, he was 71, which isn't like that old, honestly, but you know, he looked pretty old there, so I don't fucking know. He smoked his whole life or some shit, who fucking knows. But yeah, anyway. Oh, this is your thing there, Hendrix, I pulled up. But in regards to this shit, yeah, I just man, I don't fucking know. Like the fucking all the schizo shit. Maybe I'll go on the David stuff later and watch a David Icke video again. There is a video where he does a detailed breakdown of like what his logic is for why the Anunnaki were reptilians. And again, that's all coming to these kinds of conclusions off of like one line of text. It's just never a good idea, ever. So not a solid foundation there for why the blue bloods, which is a real phenomena. So the blue bloods, let's see here. Oh, this is a fucking TV show. Royalty. Blue bloods. Yes. However, royal families residing in palace had fairer skin and their veins were more noticeable blue in color. That's one explanation. The other one is that, again, the idea, thinking of the idea of royalty, which can get kind of deep. It doesn't really have to get that deep at all, but it gets back to why does someone have the right to rule because of their blood? And it gets back to, effectively, you can trace it back to Mesopotamia, where, the first instance of kings, right? And the kings were installed by the gods. And nothing literal here right now. This is all still called metaphysical, right? But that the gods installed the kings here. The gods were descendant from the kings as well. The kings were descended from the gods, and they had their blood in them. So this blood gave them the right to rule, essentially. And that idea was carried forward, and I think probably at some point forgotten, really. And then people just started thinking, well, this guy's a king. He's royalty. So then his son is going to be a prince, and he's going to be a king. But it's going back to the origin of that whole philosophy. And the reasoning for that is that these people have the blood of the gods, essentially. And that's what gives them the right to rule, because the gods ruled in times past. If you were to go back into Egypt, the time before in Egypt, right, when the gods walked among man, was called Zep Tepi, was what it was called. And that was when the gods were walking around, openly, sharing knowledge with people, all the peasants, all their serfs. So, yeah, it's all fucking schizo shit. Fourth dimensional beings that can only occupy 3D space temporarily through rituals made by the 3D pawns. Through blood sacrifices, DS? Yeah. Are you an Anunnaki skinwalker, Jim? But let me fucking tell you here, some days. I do have an interest in this topic. I have an interest in actual Mesopotamian history, Sumerian history. I find the Sumerian culture extremely intriguing, brilliant, obviously. And many of their stories are fucking highly sus when you really look at them honestly. Very smart people, and they spoke very candidly that, they were involved with a group of gods that were at one point literally walking around with them, just as the Egyptians did, and the Greeks did to a lesser extent. They did a bit more fantastically, but the Sumerians, even in their artwork, in their on their cylinder seals, very candidly wrote and depicted interactions with these beings, and depicted them very specifically, time and again. Gilgamesh and Ishtar, yes, absolutely, man. Yeah, I've got a cylinder seal of Ishtar right here, or Inanna, depending on where in Mesopotamia you are, right? If it's Assyrian, if it's Sumerian, Akkadian, there were a lot of different subcultures in Mesopotamia that over time cropped up out of the Sumerians. Where is Inanna? It's one of the ones that I show quite a bit here, actually. I think it's in the British Museum, actually. It was in Chicago for a while. I have an interest in these cylinder seals. I'm not going to fucking get into this again because I always fucking end up talking about this shit. But this stuff is what Zecharia Sitchin based his book series, the Earth Chronicles, on. But this is Inanna or Ishtar, whoever you want to call her here. And again, inspiration potentially for angels, right? They all wore wings. A lot of them wore wings. There were these winged beings, right? More than I would argue. I bought. It'd be kind of a difficult argument, but I would bet. Let's say I would bet that this was the inspiration for the Nephilim in the Bible. These beings descended down. But what's more peculiar about these depictions, right, is the further back you go, specifically in Sumeria, it's there's a veil that gets pulled back, and it isn't quite. Now they have some woo stories, but they depict them much more specifically, almost as if they were actually involved with these people. And I do find some of Sitchin's interpretations interesting in that this does look to some degree to be technological, and you do find this time and again. You can see a couple of these instances in Egypt too, in some of their depictions of the gods. But in the Sumerian depictions, there does appear to be, and again, that's just fucking you could debate to the end of time about this. We don't know, but it does look a little bit more technological than metaphysical to me. So what is that worth? Well, not a lot. But if they were in fact just people, right, that were just technologically advanced, right, that then died out, and at one time were walking around with us, who were just fucking stupid cave people, then here we are. And the interesting thing about the cylinder seals, which is an interesting theory, is that potentially the people that made some of these seals, they weren't just us, but they were them. And that's really interesting because we don't know how far back these seals actually go. We have an idea. You can't carbon date stone, right? And precious stone, precious gems and stuff, which is what some of these cylinder seals are actually carved out of, and we have no fucking idea how they did that still. So the dating upon which some of these seals are based could very legitimately be completely incorrect. We'll throw a seal back to some of these ones that have no writing either. Like they'll say, okay, it's 6,000 years old, right? Or it's 4,500 BC. It's 6,500 years old. So, well, why is that? Well, we found it in a basket of stuff, and the basket was made out of like plant material, and it was carbon dated to be around 4,500 BC, so 6,500 years ago. Okay, does that mean what's in the basket is 6,500 years old? No. So then, how do we know? Well, we don't. And then that's where we're left with it. So then some of these, right? And the interesting thing too, you find is the obsession with lions that people had in this area. And then you find in Egypt a giant statue of what was a lion before some pharaoh carved his fucking head into it. So hearkening back, and we know now that structure is at least 11 to 12,000 years old. So it predates the Egyptians. So then it ties back into this group here. So then there may be a connection to these people being associated with this object here, the Sphinx, right? And potentially other things. In that if they were able to do that 12,000 years ago, they clearly were somewhat technological. And then again, what we might be looking at here is not just metaphysical bullshit. So those wings, I mean, I'm not going to say like were they flying around with wings. I don't fucking know. We have no idea. Maybe they were. I knew an army guy who worked with the CIA in South America. Told me a story about working security for an ultra-secret meeting, and it was tons of extremely wealthy individuals all meeting at this location, and supposedly the king of the world was there. Said it was a multi-day meeting, and everyone had their own security. Said he didn't want to know what they talked about, but it looked treasonous to him. It's really interesting, man, yeah. I mean, this is something like... Those theories are very interesting in that maybe there is this puppet master. Man, like, and if I were to bet, a lot of people think it's like some Anglo-Saxon person, like, some white person. Well, and again, the Vatican's a contender, but really, the fucking the Saudi kings, man, they would be some of the wealthiest people on planet Earth, like just unknown levels of wealth. Putin's up there too, actually, but like the Saudis may be like way up there on the top. Maybe there is some kind of puppet master that resides at the Vatican. I don't like it. There's schizo theories about that shit, but hard to say, man. I mean, we definitely know that the real people with wealth don't show their face. That's something that's pretty much known, I think. Yeah, Kim Jong-un. Can you imagine? That would be really scary, actually. Yeah. I know, and her hermaphrodite brother. Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah. The connection between Minerva, Ishtar, Inanna, and the moon symbology with all three. I had another one in regards to that, actually, DS. They come from Orion. Number 7 is important too. It included the 7 seals, the 7 churches mentioned in the biblical apocalypse. Canis Major. Yeah, so the 3 popes. Where was the, let's see here. The 3 dots, right? Let's see here. So 7 is something that is associated with these Mesopotamian gods, which is really interesting. And here it is. Here's an interesting one. I show this one all the time. Oop, that's way too big. Hold on now. The stream can't take that. Here we go. There we are. This is one that I show all the time, which is one of the most, if not the most interesting cylinder seal. Theory. Oh, thanks for the follow, DS. Appreciate it, man. This is the most interesting one I think that exists personally. For many hours, and I'm not going to disclose how many, looking through these fucking things. I had the chance recently. I was in Paris in November. I went to the Louvre, and I got to see some of these in person. It's really cool. They're just tiny little fucking things like this. Most of them are like tiny little seals you rolled through clay. But this one is extremely intriguing because I have an interest in the nimbus here, this winged disc, or they call it the An disc for Anu, who's the god sitting upon it here in the middle. I have an obsession with this object because I have an intuition. It's tied potentially to a comet, and maybe even cataclysms. But the 7 dots here on the left are interesting. There's a lot of debate around this and why the number 7 is significant. 7 was used in biblical texts as well as a significant number, but the origin of why it's significant can definitely be traced back to Mesopotamia. And you can see this depicted here on some of these very old cylinder seals. Some of these more interesting seals are extremely, extremely old. They go back again to like the 4,500 to 3,500 BC mark, and that's like fucking old. Sumerian culture is 6,500 years old at most. So these seals are back to the beginning of Sumerian culture. So and again, our understanding of this is very fucking gray area too, right? This is not a culture we know a lot about, and there are many of these seals that are still out there. The official number that I think they've recovered, someone said, was like 1,000 or 1,800. But there's speculation. There are thousands of these that we've not officially gone through. So there could be some very interesting things depicted on some of these. So anyway, the 7 dots. I'll pull up another one here that's extremely interesting. So the 7 dots, it has to do with the 7 planes, 7 planetary spheres. Yes. So some scholars think the 7 dots are simply the 7 sisters or the Pleiades, the Pleiadian star system. So where the Pleiadians are from. So the gods were the Pleiadians, and they knew Billy Meyer. Just a second here. I'm going to find another depiction. I've got another seal on here where the 7 dots show up quite a bit. Where the fuck's the other one? I've got multiple different things here. Oh, fuck. Maybe I'll just stick with this one. God damn it. Anyway, there's a couple. Oh, here's one here. This is 7. There we go. There we go. This one's not quite as well done as you can see. They got the big noses for the gods here again, but that's about all they got right. They got the nimbus again over this tree of life, right, that shows up constantly, which is the man bag problem that everyone's wondering. This is what's in the bags, actually. Whatever this is acorn, this herb, fruit coming off this tree. This is what's in the man bags. It's depicted quite detailed depictions of them picking fruit or whatever the fuck vegetables off of this fucking thing. So, but the 7 dots. So this here, I'll give you a schizo interpretation of what the 7 dots might mean. All right. So this object here that they're holding, this winged disc, some people have suggested this is a celestial object. I've suggested that. I'm fairly convicted that it's depicting a celestial object. Now, if we want to get even crazier with this, right? Where are these gods from? These gods descended from heaven. The Anunnaki means, there's debate on this translation as well, unfortunately, but those who from heaven came down to earth, right? And this place, this heaven, is more than likely this object that they're riding upon here. So their king, right, and his advisors are living on this object, okay? So they're living on this object. So this object is a celestial object. They came to earth at some point, and they are from this celestial object. So this object, now it gets a little bit more crazy here. This object may be another planet in our solar system. Now, the interpretations for that from Sumerian mythology are fucking schizo. But, Sitchin, Zechariah Sitchin, who's famous for the Nibiru whole fucking deal, thought he put it together. But what's interesting is if you were to come into the solar system, right? So let's say you're on this planet. Let's say we're actually in a binary star system, right? Let's say we're actually in a binary star system and our binary star is dead. It's inert. It's out in the solar system dead. And this is a planet, and these planets do exist, and we've observed them. This is a planet that's orbiting between both of these stars. this is something. Now, this is information we came upon much more recently after Sitchin put this theory forward. But these planets do exist where they orbit around both of these stars in the binary star system. Let's say they're on this planet, crazily enough, and they're coming into the solar system. So what's their perspective on where we are, right? If they're out in the solar system for most of the orbital period, because in these kinds of planets, I've read some papers on this. I'm not a fucking astrophysicist. But they would spend most of their time out in the outer reaches of the solar system. And then they would come in to perigee, and then it would go out again, right? So they would be coming into the solar... Our perspective for Earth might be a little bit different. Like, so we're the third rock from the sun here, normally, right? Right? Mercury, Venus, Earth. So if you were to count from Pluto, because Pluto is the biggest object, although this is debatable now, actually, but when you start to come in through the Oort cloud, Pluto's the biggest object you're going to encounter, one of them, pretty much the biggest. If you count in from Pluto to Earth, what is the Earth? The Earth is the 7th planet that you run into, right? If you count in from Pluto, Earth is number 7, right? So then this designation here of 7 dots might be representing the Earth. Now, this is where things start to get kind of crazy, because this is depicted on a cylinder seal, which I don't have, but I have an artistic depiction that Sitchin put up in a slide. And this cylinder seal does exist. These people, if they were out in the solar system, may not have just been on Earth, but they might have also been on the other planet, which maybe in the distant past was somewhat habitable, who knows, but our neighbor Mars. So if you were representing Mars and you labeled Earth as 7, what would you represent Mars with? 6. So here I'll show you. Now there's some schizo stories of shit going on Mars, and I've talked about this. Now, not like, woo-woo Martians, but like there was an incident called the Phobos incident in 1989 where something shot a fucking probe out of Mars' atmosphere. The Russians with the EU and NASA worked together and sent 2 probes to go to Mars moon Phobos. So upon going there, one of the crafts, they lost control of it. They made it there, and they were noticing, this is a real event that happened, and it's still a fucking genuine mystery, that there was something stalking the probe as it was taking pictures of the Martian surface. So the idea was the probe was going to go fly around Mars, and then at some point take a U-turn or take a turn and go to Mars moon Phobos. While they were taking photos on the Martian surface, there was this weird shadow showing up as this probe was taking pictures. And this is documented. Anybody in the Discord, go to Forbidden Knowledge, go to PIN. You can watch a documentary Sitchin did back in the early 90s documenting all of the news stories covering this and all of the physicists, the astronomers covering this incident. They were confounded by these shadows. And then what happened was these shadows kept growing, and then it made its turn to go towards Mars moon Phobos. And then they lost contact with it. There was a Russian cosmonaut, and one of the heads of their Air Force, actually, Marina Popovich, went to the Soviet consulate in San Francisco, held a press conference and told everybody, they're all fucking lying to you. Here's the last image that the probe sent back. And there's this long cylindrical object approaching the probe. It shot it down, is what she said. So this object was stalking the probe as it took pictures of the Martian surface. And then as it started to approach Mars moonlit Phobos, this object blew the probe up. And she told people that from essentially blowing the whistle and going behind everybody's back there in Soviet Union. And there's an international team involved in analyzing this too, so they would have known. They would have seen this photo. And this is something that is never talked about, ever. Who were these people? So now I'm going to show you the cylinder seal. So again, Earth is the 7th planet, right, if you're coming into the solar system, as opposed to the 3rd rock from the sun. Here is a image that Sitchin put up on one of his lectures of a cylinder seal. I'm just going to find it here. Bear with me. Here it is here. Of... What the fuck are you talking about? There we go. Here we are. So, these are the gods, mind you. These are the gods. So here's the god here, right? Again, highlighting that what they're depicting with these 7 dots isn't the Pleiades. What the dots are representing is Earth. And to highlight that point further on this impression of a cylinder seal that Sitchin had, is this gentleman here, this god, holding in his right hand these 7 dots and his left hand the crescent moon. What is that implying very strongly? That it is the Earth. Now, what's even more strange is when he looks to his right, he sees another man here in a garb holding a 6-pointed star. Is this definitive proof? No. Is this fucking interesting schizo shit? Yes, it is. It's very interesting. So, again, as we know, what's the next step to the right of Earth? Mars. 6-pointed star. Earth, 7 dots. Interesting. Very interesting. Again, if that's actually what they were doing, if that's actually what it represents too, though, this is the other thing we have to understand, which is what's so crazy about this. If the 7 dots actually represent the Earth, which I think in some of these cylinder seals you can make that fucking argument pretty strongly, they are very advanced technologically, right? Because we didn't discover Pluto until 1930. So if you're using Pluto as a metric to measure into the Earth, you know your shit. Even if you're on some planet that's orbiting through, like, they know their shit. And remember, these cylinder seals are between 4,000 and 6,000 years old. Between 4 and 6.5, 7,000 years old, at least, if we haven't misinterpreted their dating. They could be twice that. They could be 3 times that. We have no fucking idea. They could be 25,000. They could be 60,000 years. We have no fucking idea. Because we can't carbon date snow. Because we're too fucking stupid. Right? So, that means, if this is correct, it means that these people are from Planet 9, Rabbit. That's what this is getting to. This object here in the middle, again, this nimbus or this disk or whatever you want to call it, this winged disk is tied to them. It's not a spaceship, right? Oh, well, maybe it is. I don't fucking know genuinely. But again, it's implied as this kingdom of heaven, this abode of the gods. Maybe it could very well be, honestly. That's when you get into like how schizo do we want to get with the interpretations, right? So I'll read some of the comments, guys. Yeah, Emmanuel in Hebrew means God with us. Manu in Hinduism is the name of the Father, all humanity. Anu is the Sumerian god. What do you think about these distant similarities? Very interesting, DS. Yeah, they're very intriguing and likely due to connections all coming from the same story, probably, right? Yeah, or the fathers through the multiple resets. Yeah, I truly think it's possible to connect to Orion through astral projection. The thing is, I'm not sure if it is Christ's territory. Interesting. It ends up being like a movie Prometheus if the visitors were not welcomed. Anyway, there must be two-way energy. Maybe, man. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting now. Yeah, I've always thought the 7 sisters, the Pleiades, have a holographic relationship with some planetary rays in the system. Interesting. Yeah. This is just a very basic kind of interpretation here, but I mean, this is after Sifts, because I heard, as someone that, again, I like reading through some scholarly stuff, and Sitchin always had such a bad rap, right? People always shit on him, and they said he was a fucking idiot, and there's a site called whysitchiniswrong.com, and there's a lot of things he got wrong, but there's some, he was not an idiot. He was not an idiot. And some of these insights are extremely valuable. And there were some people who took him seriously. Tom Van Flandern, who was one of the astronomers who worked with Robert Harrington to put forward the Planet X hypothesis, worked with Sitchin. They knew Sitchin. They respected some of his work. They thought it was interesting. I mean, the problem with it is, like, you can only go so far with it, right? Like, I mean, if you are working with orbital dynamics and stuff, and you're trying to use math to figure out this planet's out there, like, and Sitchin's like, holy fuck, look at these pictures here, and it's like, wow, like, I think they're breadcrumbs that people should be using more, in my opinion. And I think definitely they saw the value in some of the things he dug up. There's a very good interview too, for people that are new here. Maybe you can join the Discord link below. And in the Forbidden Knowledge channel, I have pinned one of Sitchin's documentaries. It is free to watch. And at the end of it, there is a very interesting interaction between a guy named Robert Harrington, who I mentioned earlier, who was the head of the U.S. Naval Observatory in the U.S. and obviously U.S. Naval Observatory. But he sits down with Sitchin at the end of this movie, and speaks quite candidly about his interest not only in his book, in books, but also in his search for this planet, which they kind of shared in common, because Robert came to this conclusion looking at the mathematics, right? About like, well, it seems as if there's this great disturber. And we had known this back in the fucking 1800s after we discovered Uranus and Neptune. So we discovered Uranus and Neptune mathematically. We didn't see Uranus and Neptune till quite a long time later when our telescopes advanced. But we just discovered them mathematically because of, essentially orbital dynamics. And there was another object that was perturbing their orbits, that we knew was perturbing their orbits. And they labeled it as Planet X back in the late 19th, early 20th century. And in the early 1930s, we thought we discovered it. So Planet X then turned into Pluto. So Pluto was thought to be this object that was perturbing these orbits, these planets. So, but we couldn't determine how big Pluto was until like the late 1970s. And just to give people a context here of like how recent these discoveries are, how we're still in the fucking crib. So the late 1970s, we send a probe flying past Pluto and realize, oh fuck, this is like the size of a moon. This is not the object perturbing Uranus and Neptune. Where's the object? Now we just start looking for Planet X again. And so Tom Van Flandern and Robert Harrington, two very prominent astronomers in the US, go on this search to look for it. And there's tons of people, reignites the frenzy around it. And what happens is Sitchin does this interview with Robert Harrington in like 1991. Harrington dies in 1993, I think, of throat cancer while looking for this object. Very suddenly dies. And it created a bit of a conspiracy that he was killed. I don't know if he was. Who knows? But it's a legitimate search, and it's still ongoing now as Planet 9. But Sitchin's point was that there are bits and pieces of information in the past here that we cannot ignore, some of which is very specific. And again, some of these cultures spoke with a lot of conviction. The Sumerians are one of them, as are some of the other Mesopotamian cultures that came after them, that who they were dealing with were not metaphysical beings. And you'd run into this too with different Native American groups in North America that spoke quite candidly. No, like these people fucking came down here. Like they showed us how to do stuff. The Dogon said the exact same thing. These really tall people, as these people all throughout all these Mesopotamian cylinder seals are depicted as, came down and they told us shit. They gave us knowledge, right? And this connection that Sitchin found, and I bring this up time and again because I think it's really fucking important. The 7 dot connection, and it's through our entire. It's deeply embedded into our culture. We have a 7-day week. Why do we have a 7-day week? Here you go. So we have a 7-day week because this number was significant. And the number was significant because it was held in high regard, essentially in Mesopotamia, and trickled down through these other cultures. Here is an example, potentially, that the number 7 is significant because it was, from the perspective of these gods, the place of Earth, right? In our solar system. The 7th planet in. I mean, just imagine how trippy that would be for people to realize that's why the number 7 is significant. Why we have a 7-day fucking work week. Why things are broken up in that way. Because this was significant to the gods. And the gods knew this because they were technologically advanced. And here is a cylinder seal. Now, this is an impression of a cylinder seal. This cylinder seal does exist of this guy standing. Now, is he just saying that, okay, well, here's a crescent moon, and then here's the Pleiades. You could maybe argue that, and then you're making this connection. Always looking over to the right. Is this just a coincidence? It could be, yes. It could be, but I don't know. Looking at all of this, I have an intuition, and it is kind of just an intuition, but I have an intuition that there's something much deeper going on here, and that potentially what this is implying here is this means the Earth, and looking over to the right here, this is Mars, and then we're down a big fucking rabbit hole of this. And this is the other part of the whole alien question, which is the ancient alien question, which has been memed almost to death by ancient aliens. So yeah. What are your thoughts on Atlantis regarding Anunnaki schizointerpretations? It's the other thing too. The Atlantis connection is very interesting because as a philosopher, specifically as a philosopher who really loved the Socratic philosophers and loved Plato. Plato is, I would put him at number one as a philosopher for me personally. He was the quintessential philosopher. He spoke in the Timaeus and Critias of Atlantis. And in one of the dialogues, he gets into quite a bit of detail about Solon's interaction with this Egyptian priest. I forget the priest's name. But in conversation with this priest, he speaks essentially of these people who were very advanced, who were down here a long time ago, who would set up a culture in the Atlantic, and that they died because they suffered cataclysms. The interesting connection to all of this here, right? Because this has a connection to something else, another phenomena called catastrophism. It is involved with something that I have been trying to dig through, I like to think in a scholarly manner, which is a guy named Emmanuel Velikovsky, who was a buddy of Einstein's. He was a Russian psychologist who had this idea that the Earth is periodically, in his narrative, that the Earth was subjected to at least one cataclysm during the Exodus, right? As we know from the Old Testament. Moses' Exodus with the Israelites out of Egypt. And that during that Exodus, there was an encounter with a celestial object, a great winged globe, that was fiery red and rained down fire and brimstone on the earth. So that encounter ties into what's depicted here, because potentially, right, this is this object, maybe that the gods wrote upon, periodically is responsible for cataclysms and extinction level events on Earth. And I've got into the deep end on that as well, but that this is brought up by Plato in this story of Atlantis, and that the priest tells Solon in this story that was carried down. This is Plato's great uncle, Solon. This is great uncle, and he passed down this story. But the priest tells Solon that the Earth is periodically subjected to destructions by fire and water, and that it's done by a celestial object. Literally, that we've on this stream, people here, I've gone over that is mentioned explicitly by Plato, that it's a celestial object in particular that causes those catastrophes periodically. And it would make sense if it's orbiting around that it would happen periodically, right? Because as we know, with the solar system, what goes around comes around. So at some point, right, the cyclical nature of things, what causes cataclysms cyclically? Is it the sun? Does the sun cyclically do things? Maybe. But what's more cyclical than the sun cycles? Maybe. If it's something returning. Because that's always going to come around. I mean, the sun can fluctuate and just randomly spout stuff out. But if it's cyclical, right, and it's down to like a fucking period, whatever that period is, 3,600 years, 12,000 years, it's more than likely an object in orbit, right? So, anyway, yeah, the Atlantis connection is very interesting. There's a lot of woo around it. There's like crystal spaceships, and I used to use crystals in my past life as an Atlantean, and you know, people do like the past life regressions and all that stuff, and I find that shit interesting, honestly. But the interesting connection to me with Plato's story of Atlantis is the catastrophism mentioned, and then it being tied to a celestial object. And then it happens periodically. And that connects with many different accounts from other cultures. And here we have one of the oldest cultures, the oldest culture we know of on planet Earth, right? Only preceded really by whoever built Göbekli Tepe, depicting in great detail a celestial object. Time and again. That's my argument, though. I have to stipulate that. Yeah. Yeah, but go to every crystal names Atlantis, and they tell you you're more connected. Yeah, fuck yeah. The Kundalini creating a seed in the solar plexus. Interesting. Speaking about the Egyptian guy from Plato, in the New Testament, it's mentioned that both John the Baptist and Jesus spent a significant time in Egypt hiding, living in, which kind of makes you think about what you mentioned about Plato, Egyptian Atlantis. Interesting, yeah. And I mean, it's Egypt was, before the burning of the Library of Alexandria, this great repository for knowledge. Everyone knows that. Anyone who has any interest in, like, scholarly stuff and getting into reading stories about this, that Egypt housed a great repository of ancient knowledge. And it's interesting, again, so Plato would have been 2,400 years ago, roughly. So this is before the burning. So when Solon was there, that was many years before that. So they spoke about how, the Greeks were so young, and that the Egyptians go back to that time, right, of when Atlantis sunk. So that, and again, if this interpretation isn't just fantasy by Plato, but it's not written like fantasy, and it has a different vibe to it. Not that Plato really wrote a lot of fucking fantasy anyway, like none really. So anyway, in that conversation, they spoke about how they held records from this time, from these people. So what was in the Library of Alexandria? We would imagine probably information about this whole saga that we lost. And this is a problem with history as well, which is where I think some people arguing against this think that, like, history is a very well understood thing, and it's not something. When you start to get into interpreting some of these ancient accounts, like even the Old Testament, man, let me tell you, like, the amount of, like, variation in some of the interpretations is insane. Like, just a passage from the Exodus, how many different fucking interpretations there are. It's insanity, right? It's actually insane. And you go back even deeper, like it's like going back 2,000 years, man, good fucking luck, right? Like, it was a miracle we found the writings. I mean, Plato's works weren't really digested and well understood till much more recently, like all of them. And some of the works I don't think were even intended by Plato to be released. So when you go back to some of this lost knowledge and stuff, like you get back past 2,000 years, like, man, you're in the fucking dark. Like, you're deep in the dark, and like, we don't fucking know. And it'd be nice if we did, but we don't. And you're dealing with the telephone game on top of everything else, and then you're dealing with the other problem, which is like opposing cultures would come and literally trash all these records. So, like, how many times have we lost everything? So many fucking times. Like, the burning of the Library of Alexandria was one instance of a great loss of knowledge. It has probably happened thousands of times, because we know these stories about this stuff are all over the world. I've spoken before, this object here that you see, this winged disc, which I can tie to objects talked about in some of these fucking other stories as a celestial object causing cataclysms, is spoken about in North America, in Ontario, Canada, Northern Ontario, by the Ojibwa, right? Fred fucking Pine was one of the elders who spoke about this, carried that knowledge down through God knows how many fucking generations of people. They spoke this Native American culture here in Ontario, Northern Ontario, about the long-tailed heavenly climbing star, this giant comet that would periodically come down and cause massive firestorms and burn everybody. And that before it came down, the only people that warned everybody were the healers and the medicine men. And the Great Spirit told them it was about to arrive. And the people that survived, they told them to go and roll in the bog so that they don't burn to death in the firestorm. It's heavy shit. When you really start piecing this together properly, this is a big uh-oh, honestly. And this is what Graham gets into a little bit, and what he got into in the Ancient Apocalypse show a tiny bit. He mentioned this story in Magicians of the Gods, which is where I heard it from. It's from I think he's a Norwegian anthropologist. I think he's from Norway, Thor Conway. And he had been working with Fred Pine and the Ojibwa for many years and talked about this story. And more than that, Fred talked about how, well, in this Native American legend we have, this object, which is another name for it, but the translation being long-tailed heavenly climbing star, winged fucking disc, was responsible for killing off a lot of megafauna. That all the big creatures that were alive during, so implying this cataclysm happened around the Ice Age, but that it killed a lot of species. Like, it was a fucking cataclysm. And if you want to get even more fucked, which we can, because it's Sunday, there's a giant burn mark over all of North America, actually evidenced potentially through many parts of the northern hemisphere of the planet. And you run into this when you dig in the ground, right? This is something that we didn't do a lot, which is dig down really deep until much more recent times. But there's this fucking burn layer, right? When you get down to around 10, 11 and a half thousand years ago, roughly. Hard to pin it down exactly. But everything caught on fire. And we got stories from not just the Ojibwa, from many other Native American cultures, all over North America and South America, which is strange, but was this a Mayan story? Or what's the guys that preceded the Mayans with the big heads? Anyway, there are these stories that tar started raining from the sky, right? Tar started raining from the sky, and then it all started to catch on fire. And they were covered in this tar burning, the Olmecs. Thank you, DS. Yeah, you know. Yeah. And that this burned everything to a fucking crisp. And then we dig down deep enough and we find that happened. Now, how does that make sense? How does tar rain out of the sky exactly? I'll tell you, right? I just talked about this the other day because this guy was on Tucker Carlson. There's an astrophysicist on Tucker Carlson. And he was talking with the climate change bullshit narrative, right? And what he was talking about was about oil. And that the precursor to oil, these hydrocarbons, right? They're not just found under the ground, right? And they think that oil, right, is made out of decaying plant material. That may be one way, but it comes from the stars as well, right? And these hydrocarbons are found all over the moon as well, right? And that potentially, if there's like a big comet, there'd be a bunch of these hydrocarbons in its tails. And if, for whatever reason, that wafted on the Earth, and maybe there's some volcanic activity going on, something ignites it, what's that going to make? Oil. It's going to make oil. It's going to burn. It's going to burn. It's going to make oil. And it's going to rain over everybody. And then what do we have? Tons of fucking stories of that happening. And a great comet appearing, doing that. Just to tie all this in for people that haven't been here before, because I always like bringing this up. You guys know what the moon looks like? Most people don't, because you can't see this because it's too bright. But if you see an actual picture without the brightness, right? The moon actually is covered in rust. And if I can find an actual picture of it, you'll see what I mean here. Picture of moon. Where is it? We're going to get at these. This is not. No, that's not what it looks like. Here we go. That's it right there. I'll put this thing down. Sorry. I'll put my thing down so you can see. There you go. Covered in fucking rust. Now, what's weird about that? Because there's iron on the moon. Guess what's not on the moon to cause the iron to rust? Oxygen. So, what oxidized all that iron? And what deposited it there? It's actually a huge mystery that's still ongoing. Let's say there's a big comet that's mentioned in multiple accounts as being red. Right? What made the comet red? What is all through the asteroid belt? Oxidized iron. So what wafted all of that onto the moon? This great comet. And coincidentally as well, this comet had petrochemicals, or a precursor, hydrocarbons in its tail, right? And that's what we find as well on the moon. This was a big back when they went to the moon, because one of the guys I've talked about here before, Manny Velikovsky, was involved with the guys at NASA, because some of the guys at NASA were huge fans of Velikovsky's work. And when they went up to the moon, they talked to Emmanuel and said, well, like, what do you want us to look for? He's like, look for hydrocarbons in rust. And they said, okay, all right. And they didn't really believe him. When they got up there, they took samples. When they got back, guess what they found? Hydrocarbons in fucking rust. And then he asked him, well, did you note in which direction they were laid upon the rocks? And they didn't do that, because what he was wondering was, how were they deposited on the surface? Because they're on the surface too, all over the surface. Because he wanted to know, from which direction did this object come in and deposit them, right? So, very, very interesting. This is still a mystery here as well, and one potentially that we might begin to get an answer for going forward, in that there is an object that periodically has some kind of an interaction with the planets in the inner solar system, right? And is depicted all over the world, more specifically in Mesopotamian history. So, yeah. There is oxygen on the moon, is there? I didn't know that. Moon being a base for not a soldier. Maybe, man. I don't fucking know. Is there actually oxygen on the moon, Ixie? I don't think so. Is there stuff on the moon that maybe has oxygen within it? Or is there oxygen on the moon when you're on the moon to oxidize the rust? Oh, according to NASA, oxygen on the moon. Oh, in the rocks, yeah. Abundant element making up almost half of the Earth's crust. On the moon, not clear, but more than 40% of the lunar crust is composed of, but there's no oxygen in the atmosphere though. So how is the oxygen in, so how is that oxidizing the iron to rust? This is an argument from Velikovsky and these guys, that it was a conundrum in that there's no oxygen in the atmosphere to actually oxidize the rust on the surface. So then what caused the rust to what caused the iron to oxidize and rust? Also water. And that could be an argument as well, that maybe the water aided in doing that, but it's an ongoing debate. They haven't come to a conclusion on this yet. So oxygen may be within some of the rocks, but there's no oxygen in the atmosphere. So again, to oxidize and rust something, there has to be oxygen in the air to do this. So that is part of the mystery. I guess be more specific here. I should be more specific. There is literally oxygen on the moon in the rocks, but there's no oxygen in the moon. The moon doesn't have an atmosphere. So then how does the iron rust? Where's the, let's see, lunar rust. Here, let's see their explanation here. Rust is a result of iron reacting with oxygen, a common reaction seen in materials on Earth. A recent study describes the same chemical response on the moon after planetary research discovered hematite. Well, that wasn't recent. They discovered it many years ago. Journal, finding a rustling substance in the moon was an unexpected discovery considering its surface lacks oxygen. The chemical reaction would only be made possible through hematite, a mineral that contains iron and is highly oxidized. This theory is yet to be confirmed by samples from the Apollo missions. However, solar wind blasts on the moon contain hydrogen, which results in a reduction, the opposite chemical reaction of oxidation. Shi Li from ICIG said the lunar hematite is a result of oxygen from Earth's upper atmosphere continuously blowing towards the moon for billions of years, okay? Using data discovered by the Moon Mineralogy Mapper in 2009, he confirmed the presence of water, ice in the moon's polar regions. Yes. Spectral features and patterns unique from signatures seen at lower latitudes as samples collected from Apollo missions. Lee became curious if water rock reactions were possible on the moon, similar to the oxidation of metals on Earth, which is what we're talking about here right now. So that who knows, maybe. After several months, he discovered the signature of hematite with the help of researchers from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They analyzed data from the M3. Hematite was mostly found near the water content at high latitudes. Well, that's not completely true because we know that where's the actual photo? No, not Blue Bloods. Where's the actual picture of the moon? It's all over the fucking moon. It's all over the moon. Suggesting it may be related to Earth. Maybe. That's a theory, I guess. But less schizo than a giant comet deposited all over the moon. So very interesting, very convenient. Yeah. Water is on the moon. It is. And oxygen technically is on the moon within the rocks, within water. but that would traditionally, that wouldn't cause this level of oxidation, right? To achieve this level of oxidation, to be more specific, you would need oxygen in the atmosphere to cause this level. And that was the argument that was made in one of Velikovsky's books. Now, is that a bit outdated from the 50s and 60s? Yeah. These are still theories, though. This is not for sure. We figured this out. So that's where ginger people come from, yeah. So to get this level of oxidation with the absence of an atmosphere with any oxygen in it, it's highly suspect. So then what was his name? Lee's theory is that maybe the Earth's atmosphere is blowing off onto the moon. And I mean, listen, I'm not going to be dogmatic, and I'm not necessarily going to fucking die on the ground if it was Nibiru that did it. But that seems, and I don't have a background either to say honestly that it's far-fetched, but it's interesting. I guess we're trying to figure out an explanation here. Listen, I hope it's not due to this object depositing it, but it's still an ongoing mystery, is the point. That we don't know what caused all the rust on the moon. It's not even something that I knew about until much more recently, till I started looking into this a little more deeply, where I was like, well, what? There's rust on the moon. And, you know, you might expect in small amounts, but to this degree, this level of rust, that's the other part about this that's strange, where there's a fuckload of rust all over the moon. And again, there are other theories that raise this question of, no, there's too much rust. There's something else going on with this, and that's the point that I'm raising here, I guess. But as well as the hydrocarbons. But then again, maybe you could come to some kind of like theory about, well, maybe if the Earth's atmosphere is blowing off fucking onto the moon, then maybe that's also happening to some degree, and that's getting over there. And yeah, and until you told us, you didn't know. Yeah, exactly. So maybe someone will come up with an answer to this. What are your ideas, or what was there before the rust began? Well, well, who knows, right? I mean, if it's due to some celestial phenomena, or in part due, I should say, to some kind of celestial phenomena, some celestial object, then that's probably been going on for a long fucking time, I would imagine. So it maybe it's always been there to some degree. It's always been peppered on the moon. But who knows? Who the fuck knows? Listen, I don't know any of this for sure. I'm just bringing up these questions. But I appreciate you posting that, Ixie. That's a good point. So anyway, we'll go through every single angle of it. That's what you have to fucking do with this too, though, right? The moon is rusting. I'm Dr. Maggie Lou, and welcome to my channel where you can find all things space, astronomy, and physics. Why is the moon rusting? So again, the perspective here is the moon is rusting. So this is one of the, again, what we just went through is that the iron on the moon is oxidizing somehow and rusting. There's an alternate theory and explanation that it isn't necessarily the iron on the moon that's rusting. There has been oxidized iron deposited onto the moon. That is also one of the conundrums they ran into when they scraped the moon rock, is that it appeared that maybe it was something that could have been deposited because there are hydrocarbons found with it. Right? So that's the Velikovsky angle on it. And my schizo shit trying to connect it all together. Yeah, I have theories of the moon. Hecklefish schizo. Here you go. Where the fuck's this second? There you go.
I will be a strict but fair lord of these lands, and my serfs will come to idolize me.
Oh my god. That's a Klaus Schwab line there. There you go. How much are these? Thank you, HFX Pins and Train Bees, for sending me this. If anyone sends me anything else, I'll put it on my desk and I'll play with it occasionally. I won't let my dog eat it, I promise. Yeah. What do you think of Saturn's hexagon? Yeah, that's interesting, huh? That's another weird one, huh? Hexagon. This. People talk about this all the time. I mean, it could be, some people think maybe it's to do with like some alien base. It's probably something like an as above, so below kind of phenomena, right? Like some geometric phenomena just to do with like maybe the size of the planet, the storms and whatnot on it, and how like something to do with physics, you know, kind of like when you measure the inside of a seashell. You get kind of a spiral figure that is identical potentially to like our actual spiral galaxy. That you get this as above, so below kind of phenomena where in the micro and the macro you see these kinds of patterns extrapolated out. So the moon is flat. I like that one actually. Let's fucking go with that one. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah. But yeah. The moon is a base. That's a really good one. That's a really good theory. The moon is planet X. One of the more schizo theories I've heard, and you know, there's some accredited people putting these theories out all the time. You go to ArcVix, you can read through all these fucking papers. You can publish a paper. Just go to your local university and pay them a bunch of fucking money, and then be like, hey, can I write a paper on it? It's like, fucking sure. We're not going to fucking peer review it, but you can fucking write it. There's someone that wrote a paper on that the moon is actually a Dyson sphere, and that within the moon is like a white dwarf star, and that aliens brought the moon to us, and that inside the moon, again, it's just outer shell, and this white dwarf star is inside the moon, and it's actually a Dyson sphere. And that's why it rang like a bell when NASA hit it with that fucking probe like 40, 50, 60 years ago, however long ago it was, that it's actually a base. And there's peculiar things about the moon. Again, I don't know if I always assumed there was probably some natural explanation to it, but that it's tidally locked, that it's locked in only facing one side at all times is kind of a bit of a strange thing. The size as well is a bit of a strange thing in comparison to our Earth. Like it's kind of, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's kind of too big. The fact that it perfectly eclipses the sun as well is interesting. Now, I mean, you could probably start to get into with that, like I would always think, maybe like, again, an as above, so below type kind of fucking argument where it'll find its equilibrium in the universe. Like it would find naturally, maybe there's some kind of equilibrium that was worked out over time. It is slowly drifting away actually, but that at this point in time, it just so happens to perfectly eclipse the sun. And that maybe that tidally locked feature too is something. I think we've observed. Isn't there another one in our solar system? And the moon is tidally locked with this planet. I don't fucking know. Yeah. Looks like from Earth, if you think about it, like an eye with the rings making a border of an eye. That's interesting. I had a picture actually, man, of Saturn recently. Where was it? It was sick as fuck. I think I put it on my desktop. But it was an image actually of Saturn, and they fucked around with the lighting a little bit. Well, they incorporated wavelengths of light that we can't normally see, and dimmed it. But you could see. Actually, I'll just look it up. Actually, yeah, man, it's a strange thing. James Webb Saturn. It was a recent one. Fuck, where was it, man? It looked amazing. You could see all of the other galaxies, because normally, like, when we look up in the night sky, we only kind of see like stars close to us. But if you were able to kind of like see different wavelengths, oh, is this in here? Is this it? Fuck, where is it? Saturn new photo. Oh shit! It was so cool. You could see the other galaxies in the background. Oh, right here. Oh, fuck. Can I blow this up? Here it is, right here. I can't really blow it up any bigger. But you can kind of see there's Saturn in the middle of the image. Now these, again, using wavelengths our eyes can't see. But if we could see these other wavelengths, those are most of those objects in the background. So the big ones are stars. Those are all galaxies. So, like, when we look up at the night sky, there's a lot of stars, but some of those dots too are galaxies. Actually, you can see, like, through all of our stars, all the galaxies that surround our galaxy. Man, that perspective is insane. So imagine you're some alien species, and maybe you've genetically engineered your eyes to be able to take in all these other wavelengths. I mean, you're going to look out, and if you're traveling through space, like for us, it's just all fucking black and dark, and it's like, that fucking sucks. But for these other species, you're flying through the galaxy, our solar system, and you're not just seeing Saturn here, but you're seeing the other stars and then all the galaxies in the background. That perspective is crazy. Really, really crazy. Yeah. Looks like me, the moon has pathways and Earth-like features from that distance. Yeah, it's interesting, man. Look at the reflection of the sun. Yeah, really, though. It kind of does here. Yeah, NASA Eyes on Asteroids. A cool site. See, sending a portal link to you and Whisper to all kinds of fun sites. Oh, cool, man. Yeah, fucking do it. Fucking do it. Yeah. No, Eyes on Asteroids. That's cool, man. I'll check that out. Same as Earth would look like from the moon. Yeah. And the image, there's still people that believe we're the only digital life form. That's exactly it. Yeah. I think, the argument to name it is that, like, people, some people just reserve judgment. They don't like to speculate, and they have they're so afraid of it. And I get the fear of speculation when you look through stories like the witch hunts and stuff. Like, you want to be extremely grounded, but you need to be able to speculate a little bit to think properly. You have to kind of, you don't want to take both your feet up off the ground, but you should free your mind a little bit. And again, perspective, when looking at something like this statistically, I think it's not something we know, though. We don't know for certain, right? I mean, we have our intuitions, right? And then maybe you could say, in my heart, I know, or I feel very strongly we're not the only life that there is. But we've never just really encountered it properly yet. I have a deep interest in going through stories of people encountering all kinds of strange things with the UFO phenomena, in ufology, the abduction phenomena, having very strange experiences with all kinds of different beings from all over the fucking galaxy and the universe, maybe. I find those stories extremely intriguing, but, like, I don't know for certain that those things are real. Like, again, but then you can get in, like in philosophy, we can get into, like, what do we actually know? It's like, well, I know that 2 + 2 = 4. It's like, well, you do, but then do you know for sure there isn't some deceiver behind you, some demon, some great powerful entity that's warping your mind from a distance, that's making you think that's right, but in actual fact it isn't? And then you could say, well, I don't know that for sure. So then, do I know this for sure? And then that's when you start to descend into madness. And that's when you start questioning everything. And then that's when everything just starts to fall apart for you. That's a Cartesian conundrum there, right? It's Descartes. But then the one thing that you really know, and the one thing you could argue, if you want to be philosophical about it, that we only really know is that we exist, right, as individuals, because we think. I think, therefore I am. That is the one thing that I cannot be deceived out of. Everything else, technically, we could have a conversation and we could argue about, well, how much do you know for sure? So then from there we can say, well, looking out here in the solar system, right, this spattering of galaxies out in the distance, if I were to bet, of course, I would say, yeah, there's probably a fuckload of life everywhere, but I don't know. But then we can get back to, what do we really know? Right? So, yeah. Oh, conspiracy not welcome, bro. Came in at a good time. Yeah, fuck. Here's the portal link. All I can say is have fun. Interactive qualities of these sides of the standing. Oh, thanks, 99. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming in. Oh, cool. NASA's eyes in the solar system. I mean, and I talk shit about NASA, and I do really enjoy this shit. I've always been deeply enthralled with space and big questions too. Like, I love, big questions and ontology and philosophy, ontological arguments, like that there's like the greater forces at work here. Like, and again, lots of people that work in these fields, are interested in similar conversations, because when you have that kind of perspective like this, man, again, it just shifts your entire. Imagine if we could wake up every day and look out, at least at night, see this. So we not only just see a spattering of a couple stars, but we see all these galaxies. Like, we're all on this grand adventure here. And that's what we have to kind of remember. Our culture, our society doesn't really help us think that, because it just kind of beats us senseless and beats us down. I look forward to one day, unfortunately, everything falling apart so we can build it back up much better. But, it's just it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring. Yeah. I was told how to think, therefore I was. There you go. Maybe, yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. You think, therefore you are, though, right? So, but you can still be manipulated throughout that process. Eyes on exoplanets. Ooh, exciting. Solar system interactive. This is cool, man. Thank you for sending this. Actually, this is kind of dope. Oh, see, this kind of perspective is really important to see too, actually. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to read through the comments, guys. Yeah. I don't want to bring up anything negative. Do you think that the thinkers of theosophy and esoteric thinkers like Gurdjieff knew a lot of the answers, lots of questions we can make? Man, you're well read on this shit, yeah? The fucking theosophists, Madame Lebowski or whatever. Yeah. Well, that's it. It's in, typically in philosophy, like academically, they like to shy away from talking about things like that, like theosophy and modern, like kind of woo-woo metaphysics, because it's ungrounded. It's illogical. But I found all that stuff just so intoxicating over the years. Like, so the theosophists were kind of like the beginning of like the modern day kind of like metaphysical movements, like spiritualism and stuff like that. They brought a lot of like Eastern kind of esotericism over to the West, and they were involved with guys like Edgar Cayce too, because they had these ideas about, well, like, what is reality. They were thinking outside of the box. When I have to be completely honest, disciplines like philosophy were still very much tied to the church. Actually, and philosophy in and of itself was still tied into religious studies and going over the Bible, right? The theosophists, right, were having much more interesting, vivid conversations. So, and they started looking out into the world. Like, again, these religious philosophers were arguing about like what Jesus had for breakfast, and like, like it's like, this prophet, right? These theosophists were out looking in the world for other types of people like this, that maybe were bringing some unique perspective to the world. And one of those people was Edgar Cayce, who was the godfather of all fucking woo, right? He was the guy, the woo guy. And Edgar Cayce talks about all kinds of wacky stuff about like past life regressions and channeling and stuff. And I find that stuff all very interesting. And it ties in with ufology, something I've always been very interested in. And with the abduction phenomena, it's like people claiming they're talking to these beings or talking to beings, or past life stuff I brought up before with like Michael Newton's work, Dr. Michael Newton's work. He was a very accredited psychologist who specialized in hypnotherapy and worked with people extensively, did many case studies, bringing people through these strange trance-like states where they're having these very vivid, experiences about like this other side of reality, and that this is all some simulation. And I've read all his work. I found all this stuff extremely interesting. And that stuff all started kind of with these theosophists. So they brought this stuff forward. So, anyway, personally, even things like this ties in remote viewing, all this woo. Like, I know how fucking woo it is. And just like talking before about being grounded, like being honest about what we know or what we think we know, right? You don't want to get too fucking obnoxious, because that, I think, is the point, honestly, of philosophers in different disciplines and in the world, is to be that obnoxious force at times. But to not be that person right now. I do like to try and remain grounded as much as possible, but I still entertain all these ideas, because things like remote viewing or past life regression or any of these different phenomena could be indicative of just our next step in understanding, right? And if we approach that with ignorance and hubris, we're just going to be fucking handicapping ourselves. I don't know how many times throughout history we have to be arrogant and ignorant before we realize that just holds us back. And I think we should approach things with an open mind, still be critical, be rational, be grounded, but like not be ignorant. And especially, again, with remote viewing, it's fucking out there, man. It's wacky as shit. There's a lot of bullshit involved with it, but there's something going on, and it's like looking into that more honestly. And we're at the cusp of that now, I think. So, it's definitely going to be interesting. I hope it doesn't all just culminate in just one big like event of like shit that all blows up. And I hope we figure all this out before maybe something figures us out, right? Again, I speak about this because I'm passionate about it, and it's something that I've involved myself in trying to pick apart. But the idea, unfortunately, that our planet in particular in this great, scheme here might unfortunately be subject to like some kind of catastrophic episodes periodically, and I don't claim to know what those cycles are. I don't know periodically how often it happens, but there's definitely a lot of indications, and the lack of conviction that we have around this, I think, is to do with people becoming far too hyper specialized in different areas in some of these other disciplines that should be in charge of looking into this. This isn't my fucking thing, I'm not a fucking archaeologist. I'm not an anthropologist. I don't know why I'm stitching this all together. I just like crazy fucking wacky shit, and this happens to be one of those things. But why we don't know this more, I think, is to do with, again, you want to get into this, like we became far too honed in on, our little corner, our little nook, and we weren't sharing notes enough. And that could be to our great detriment, potentially, if it turns out that we're at the end of one of these fucking cycles, which another rabbit hole for another time. But Betelgeuse explodes in Orion's top left star. It'll be bright as a full moon. Yeah, man, absolutely. People thought that was happening recently, huh? That was the last year. They thought maybe that was going to happen. They thought they were seeing indications of that happening. I thought it was really fucking interesting. Yeah. Fuck. Just throwing it out there, time theory algorithms lack size in the equations. Interesting. All right, familiar with model logic? Saul Cripe, David Kellogg, Lewis. They pose as materialistic, but they're deeply and cryptically spiritual. I'm not really. No, not familiar. Maybe Kripke. His name sounds familiar. There are important reasons as to why Wittgenstein's change of heart occurred. Yeah, he felt some wacky schizophrenia. Yeah, exactly. Now, again, I'm not super big into logic in philosophy. It's far too mathematical, and I am not good at math. But I do like Wittgenstein. He spoke about this for some people that don't know. I'm not a fan. Oh no, I understand its importance, but his Tractatus is very difficult. Again, my mind is not made to digest mathematical equations. It's a language I don't speak very well, and people that are good at math tend to excel in logic. But Wittgenstein during the First World War, I think, had an experience where while he was in the trenches, he felt some force come over him that would essentially reassured him he wasn't going to die. And so he ran out of the trenches and just knew that he wasn't going to get killed. And this is a pretty deeply emotional experience, really, and the way he talked about it too, that, everyone was dying around him. And for some reason he felt and was to some degree told, maybe, the way he talks about it, that he was going to be okay and he wasn't going to die here. Because that hesitation that he had maybe was going to cause that. I don't know. We're going to talk about get real schizo, but anyway, that he ran out of the trenches. Wittgenstein was a great philosopher, German philosopher. Was he Austrian? Anyway, Bavarian fucking philosopher, and famous for the Tractatus. But anyway, he had a very spiritual experience. This happens with people in their lives. Tons of people have experiences in their lives that are not explainable. I'm definitely an advocate for like fucking some form of simulation theory. If I were to bet, that's probably kind of what we're living in. Maybe is why we have all of these other like weird things going on, like the whole remote viewing thing. There are indications people are beginning to trend in this direction. Some very materialistic people are beginning to trend in this direction, which I find very interesting and very encouraging that maybe this is actually in fact what's happening. It's interesting. I've had my own experience of this. I've communicated this multiple times, but I, as a meme, was going around and visiting psychics, and I went and visited a psychic and had a very powerful experience that was impossible. That they literally channeled someone who I love very much, who had passed away, unfortunately, very tragically, and they channeled him, like quite literally. They channeled his voice, literally, And I knew this person did not know him in any way, shape, or form. And did not communicate actually what kind of happened to this person either in any way. And this was kind of communicated during the interaction. And I just know how impossible the entire thing was. And I've heard many other people that have had encounters like this with people who are psychics. And listen, I could be very and have been very critical of organized religion in the past. I'm absolutely not a fan. And was quite critical to some degree of some of these woo type people. But that experience, I had my intuitions, there was probably something to it, but that experience kind of shifted my perspective quite a bit where, it's like, okay, where I knew I knew that person very well. And I knew to the point, even the syntax and not syntax, but the cadence of my speech, sorry. How I'm speaking, even lisps in my voice, on my teeth are set up, things like that, that make the way. So even if someone was able to mimic perfectly the way that I talked, even if they have a different pitch for their voice, you'd be like, oh, that's Jim. Everybody has that though. Everybody uniquely has it about them. And this person did that when they were speaking with me. With this person that we had lost, our group of friends had lost, and it threw me into shock. Actually, I was not prepared for it. I was anticipating just kind of some bullshit. Sat down, paid her $130, and I had other questions too. I was like, "You're a psychic. Tell me about Nibiru." I was like, "Tell me where's this planet at if it's out there, right? Enlighten me." And instead, this came up in conversation, and then that happened. And the other thing that's weird, yes, absolutely, man. I speak quite candidly about these things because, why the fuck not? The temperature in the room changed before it happened. And now, as someone who wasn't a huge, I'm not a Ghost Adventures fucking guy here, you can only consume so many different schizo fucking things. But I was told from people after the fact that is a phenomena supposedly that happens when people have visitations by spirits, or they're in a room and there are ghosts, that there's a temperature change. And I encountered that before this interaction occurred. And, man, but listen now, as someone who loves Greek philosophy, all the fucking boys went to the Oracle at fucking Delphi. They all showed up there to speak with her. She might have been hot. I don't know what the fuck they were doing there, but they all showed. Socrates, who seemed like no bullshit, kept showing up there. Kept throwing money at them probably. But there's a reason, because there are some people that are just acquainted with the unknown, I think, is a good way of putting it. That there's a lot of shit we don't fucking know. And if you approach that with ignorance, good luck. And that's something I took away from Carl Jung, who was in and of himself a great philosopher, but a psychoanalyst and a psychiatrist, I guess. Or psychologist, but he said, don't ever be ignorant to mystical experience, because you can never know all there is to know. And if you approach that great unknown with arrogance and ignorance, you're going to fucking fail. So don't be ignorant to it. More specifically, don't be ignorant to mystical experience, because we cannot know all there is to know. So it's fine to be grounded, but it's not fine to be ignorant, right? And that's something that I've tried to just, hold myself in approaching these kinds of topics. It's just not the way to go about things. Again, time and again, we do this, where we approach things with this hubris, and it's we got to stop. As a species, we have to stop. And maybe it's that in great intellectuals, there's just inherently this narcissism, but I see this a lot in people Neil deGrasse Tyson, man. Now, he was a wrestler in fucking college, but someone needs to slap the fucking shit out of him. Fuck. And I like Neil. I liked watching Neil's thing. He did Carl Sagan's Cosmos over again. I really enjoyed that. But fuck Neil, bro. Jesus Christ. Yeah, but in mediumship training, we learned the client brings their spirits with them. That's interesting. Yeah, Serpentine, you'd mentioned that you were psychic too. Yeah. Oh, listen, yeah, psychics are great, but we aren't omniscient. Yes, you'd mentioned that. Yeah, 1,000%. There's a good balance to be found between groundedness and humility. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And listen, and I found a new respect for people again that like willingly venture into the unknown, and I just, you know, it's just a force we're contending with here we don't understand probably. You know, and are there people that like go out in the fucking like swamp with it? Like abso-fucking-lutely, right? But there's just same thing with remote viewing. As wacky as some people take it, and there's people trying to remote view the crypto fucking markets. I'm like, fuck, Jesus Christ. Like, but you know, there's been some legitimate experiments done around it, and the results were interesting. Was there enough done on it? Not really, but just don't be ignorant to it. You know, that's just my advice, I guess, as someone that's gone through something like that. Kamala Kundalini Christ is like the feeling and experience in your own body. As you said, you must perceive the carefulness, because if you don't believe and keep pushing, it can push hard. Interesting. I think a personal experience of warning is important. Yeah, exactly. And that's, just don't do it. You know, it's, great consequences. And the other thing too, it's psychologically, I think, could be very damaging to employ that level of like ignorance and arrogance in all aspects of your life. This is a more difficult thing to come to terms with, but I've known people who have used denial maybe far too much in their life. And this is something far more complicated that I don't think as a culture we're very much acquainted with here in the West. But that, you know, let's say, for instance, your partner has not been faithful to you and they continue not to be faithful with you. And to cope with that, you, instead of facing it and confronting them, went into denial. And you have to be careful employing things like denial, because to cope with other problems in your life, you could then start employing denial there. And you could go down this rabbit hole of like just ending up a mess. And it's these are things we do to comfort ourselves when faced with threats, and it's probably some like kind of defense mechanism, but don't do it. You know, and I think people face the same problems. Like, I'll pull this up here in a second, Hendrix, with Neil, but like, it's this like arrogance and hubris that they approach things with, and psychologically, it's just very damaging. I think probably again in all aspects of their life, and also it damages, which they need to be cognitive of, their perspective. And again, it's like, you know, he's a public figure. He's an astrophysicist. He's a communicator of science. He's not a practicing scientist really, but he's a great communicator. And he just needs to be more cognitive of how that's bleeding into other aspects of his life, and how it's possibly poisoning his perspective, and, you know, just greatly damaging just his view on everything, poisoning the well, really. So, you know, anyway, you know, it's why you have to have good people around you too. And I don't know, sometimes the way in which, the way in which some of these people speak, I can just tell they don't have a friend that just looks at them once in a while. And it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Neil deGrasse Tyson needs to grow up. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is jealous. You can publish that. He's acting more like an astrologer than an astronomer. He's acting more like a priest. Look at the people who are the most against it. They're actually not practicing scientists. They're opinion scientists. When's the last time any of these people have actually been anywhere near a laboratory or near a measurement device?
The signal we get from it is elongated, but it's probably a rubble pile stretched into that shape. Because you don't get that by nature. You don't get that.
Yeah, that's why it's man-made. Alien made.
You want that to be aliens. That's what, just fess up. You want that to be aliens.
Of course I want that to be aliens.
Okay. These people should be forced to give back their PhDs. If you're not going to honor your oath of how you're going to address and approach data and openness to ideas, and you're going to use ridicule, you've lost.
If this were aliens in some kind of advanced ship, it would be maneuvering, because a tennis ball would have that trajectory moving at that speed. That's all.
Is there any chance that's a tennis ball?
No.
Bullshit. Yeah. Absolute bullshit. Yeah. Again, very, very aptly put. Gary, who is a scientist who contributes greatly to his discipline. Yeah, he's acting more like a priest. But this is what people have done now. This is the problem, though. We've created this thing called scientism. Unfortunately, it's a huge problem. And there are people I talk in here who probably know this very well as they work within these different fields and have worked within them. But like some of these people, man, are so fucking dogmatic. I know Drunk Physics was on arguing, he was saying, with Brian Cox, who's fucking, one of these science communicators who, is just completely fucking out to lunch, and they are functioning like high priests, really. That's kind of how things are set up. But, that's again one of these reasons why we don't want to become too arrogant, ignorant, have too much hubris, because we aren't cognitive of what we're doing, that we're not cognitive that we're functioning like a fucking high priest of scientism. It's like, oh shit, hold on. It's like, again, yeah, we need more introspection, right? That's what we need, right? We need to think about like how we're acting. We need to think about, be more cognitive of these things a little bit more. It's like, maybe we should read, Neil, instead of more papers on fucking white dwarfs and brown dwarfs and red star, read some psychology, read some Carl Jung, expand your perspective. Again, get locked into too much, just our little fucking segment of reality here, right? It's like, I only read fucking astrophysics. It's like, read some more shit, right? Maybe, I don't know. It's like, expand your perspective. Maybe, right? I don't fucking know. Apparently YouTube is starting to block clips of Larry King's show, UFO ones. Oh, really? That's fucking annoying. All Larry King live UFO episodes are now being blocked on by YouTube by Turner. Oh, fuckers. Apparently someone knows what's coming and has realized it can't be lucrative again. Well, I mean, you sure this works fine? That's just one, though. Oh, man. For people that didn't watch these back in the day, I feel bad for you. Remember, I used to stand in our kitchen with my dad, and he'd just be like eating peanut butter sandwiches, drinking milk, and I'd be watching these. I'd be watching Larry King with James Fox, actually, too, which I always thought was fucking, it was a fond memory, yeah. Here she asked, and girl first, say close, I remember the other day, you can put a PhD on your resume because no one checks. So, well, I mean, who the fuck's gonna actually check and see if you have one, right? Are they gonna go into what you did for your dissertation and shit? Probably fucking not. They're just gonna be like, oh my god, you're a doctor. Oh my god. Defending the value of having a PhD degree while talking about aliens and schizo things, yeah. Momo could be disabled if they're electric or on cruise control, yeah. Jesus Christ, yeah. We feel like, okay, to just be real. That's exactly it. We're drinking, yeah. And I think Rabbi Ranger, welcome, man. Welcome back. Yeah. John, but again, John was one of these great intellectuals that actually had courage and like actually for like 5 seconds listen to what people were trying to tell him, right? Instead of like some of the other people in his department who were like, you're crazy, right? Take all these pills and, chemically lobotomize yourself for me, right? He's like, oh, okay, you don't sound crazy. Oh, well, let's go through the procedure. All right, okay, no, you're not crazy. Oh shit, okay. And oh, that's really interesting. And then what there's thousands of other people like you. Oh, what's going on here, right? That's literally all those people had to do. But instead what they chose to do was just be lazy and not look into it. And because guess what? At the time, there was a giant PSYOP running, and it's run for a while, and it still runs, which is convince people there's nothing going on with ufology and the UFO problem. It's all some grand illusion / delusion. And then that's what these other people in academia, because what these other people in academia think is that, oh, well, there are accredited people that would know for sure if this is happening, and they would tell the truth on this, right? Like they wouldn't lie to us, right? Like that's what they're thinking. I'm doing my work. There are other people that are doing their work. And if this is real, we would know and they would find it out. It's like, well, unfortunately, there are bad people in the world. There's corruption in the world. And unfortunately, there are real conspiracies, and this is one of them. And that's kind of the conclusion to TLDR and ufology. And kind of what happened in that it took, with great courage, John going forward and being like, fuck, like really confronting that behemoth by himself to come to where he came to. But yeah, Neil's no more than he shows us. Most of those pop scientists know the secret Illuminati membership committees. That'd be fucked though if Neil was like I don't want to say that actually. I was gonna say Jimmy Savile. That's not fair. But if Neil was actually part of some cult, like he had to drink like fucking blood and stuff to join it, that, you know, I don't know what the fuck's going on up in the halls of power. Like if it's like a Jimmy Savile situation everywhere, then like we're just getting the fuck out of here, guys. We're going in the woods right now. Like, I'm just fucking done with these idiots if that's what's going on. But you know, I hope not. Yeah. I thought he meant Rip Turner, not Turner Rocket. Oh, shit. There you go. Yeah, but Stanton Friedman. Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, man. Stanton too. Same fucking deal with Stanton, right? Exact same deal with Stanton. Stanton's a fucking OG, 100%. Be another chess piece movement. Yeah, Stanton was definitely one. Stanton and John, actually, both of them, different areas of the phenomena too. Stanton dug into crash retrievals and like possibly recovery of technology, and John dealt with the more, as like Stanton is a nuclear physicist, right? Dealt, I think, to some degree with propulsion, and then John was a psychologist, or I think he was a psychiatrist, right? So dealt with the mind, and but both experts in those fields, and we needed both of those people to contend with the whole phenomena. Kim Jong-un shuts down radio stations with the broadcast encoded message to South Korean spies. Oh my God. Holy fuck, man. What's this guy even doing? God damn it. Jesus. They're going to try and use him as a boogeyman again. That didn't work very well when the fucking mainstream media was trying to fucking use old Kim as the boogeyman. Like, and a lot of people took that shit seriously. They're like, oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah, all right. All right, he's going to blow up the world. Okay, right. Meanwhile, the United States fucking, more fucking military and nuclear weapons than any other fucking nation on earth. It's like, you know, who's the boogeyman? The boogeyman is who's fucking putting Joe's diapers on. That's who the fucking boogeyman is right now. Whoever is cleaning Joe's diapers and putting fresh diapers on fucking old Uncle Joe, that's who's really to be fucking, who we should be concerned about. Because they technically have the nuclear launch codes, not Joe. Yeah. Ishtar steals the seed of Pornhub users, and like the UFO probably want to make it think it's not happening. Yeah, exactly. Fuck. Yeah, man. Yeah. Kim Jong-un directed a decisive policy change. Oh, Jesus. Man, I mean, yeah. That whole place is probably just going to blow up someday. Just one day we're just going to turn on the news and it's just all going to be gone. And probably people will be like, fuck. And then just go back to whatever we're doing. Playing Monster Hunter, World of Warcraft. So, I wanted to cover this, definitely. This is the other part of the thing I have up here on the stream, which is a big fucking news, honestly, which is to do with the classified meeting that we're in here, the ICIG, and some of the rhetoric that was being thrown around. This happened a couple days ago. Pretty much everybody has heard about this by now. But I'm just having to fucking reload everything, for Christ's sake. Representative Luna had said something very interesting, though, in regards to the phenomena, which was that we should start considering this maybe instead of NHI along the lines of interdimensional, which is something she had mentioned that Grush had mentioned, maybe implying that this had come up in conversation. Which again, for many people here probably well acquainted with the woo and ufology, implying the visitors maybe are not from this dimension. Now, when we say that, what comes to mind? So, I mean, depending upon people's background with this, they might think like, oh, from like an alternate dimension, like Schrodinger, like fucking like another like universe, like they're from another dimensional point. Is it us? If like fucking instead of like marsupials fucking advanced and fucking, you know, evolution, like these little reptiles advanced or some shit, like here Spock. Yeah, it's like maybe, but if we're gonna get into the woo ufology, the woo, like the anecdotal shit from like the abductee phenomena that Mac dug into, is the visitors are so much more advanced than us that they've realized the universe has these other spaces that we can access. And this is something that we've speculated about in string theory, that there are these other physical dimensions above our own, up to like 11 maybe, potentially physical. And I'm not an expert in fucking string theory here, but that potentially there are these physical dimensions that we can move into, and that they are not in a separate one, but they're in one above us. So they're in this like other space above us, and there are other spaces above those. This is what's in ufology. People have tried to carry this over into string theory, not very well, but this is what they're talking about in ufology, right? In the schizo shit, that these beings are in this place vibrating at a higher frequency than us, which is why they're occupying the same space, but they're in this other area, and that they come down to our place occasionally, and that's when we see them. And this could also account for some of the strange imagery that people see in regards to UFOs, because it's like they're coming down through our dimension, kind of like if you were a person in Flatland, a 2D person, and like an apple were to try and come down into the plane of the Flatlanders. All the Flatlanders would see were slices of the apple coming as it came down and interacted with them. If you're this fourth dimensional creature, right, or you're just a creature that's in a fourth dimension and you're coming down and trying to interact with creatures in the third dimension, you'd have these strange visuals. And we do in fact see that a lot in ufology, in reports of people seeing crafts and shit. They do weird shit, like they're morphing constantly, and then they appear as a solid object, like a saucer. But that's, some people have started to try and connect those two things more. I know Travis Taylor, who's the guy from Skinwalker and Ancient Aliens, he is a physicist. He's multiple different PhDs. He's like a laser physicist. I don't think he's in theoretical physics, but you know, smart fucking dude, applied physics, and he speculated on this. And I thought it was interesting. I was like, well, fuck yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something to these crazy accounts of people talking to aliens in their dreams and shit. I don't know. Maybe there's something going on with that. Yeah. After finding out some of the internet could become a part of a library, Stanton, Freeman popped up. Closest ufology I could find in the old magic box that may have been created with scratch rifles. Interesting. There's like a theory that they fake an alien invasion. Yes, Bluebeam is what it's called. Project Bluebeam DS. It was back in the 60s, I think. Late 60s maybe, where there was some theory crafting going on that if holographic technology got advanced enough that if they needed a boogeyman, they could maybe fake an alien invasion, and the ultimate boogeyman would be from, you know, interstellar space, right? That would be the ultimate boogeyman, because as we can see here, we saw with Kim Jong-un, he's not a very good fucking boogeyman. Doesn't keep the kids up at night, right? that haircut's not fucking keeping anybody up. Well, I mean, unless you go to your barber and they give you one. But so we need a better boogeyman, and what better boogeyman than fucking 20-foot tall fucking alpha draconians, reptilians. Like these motherfuckers will keep you up at night. Holy shit. That's not, oh. What the fuck is this? Why does he get such a small dick? Can you guys see that? An artist's conception comparing reptilians to humans. Holy fuck, boys. Like they're like 9 feet tall, but they got like a fucking 3-incher on them. What the fuck? Maybe that's why they're so fucking angry. Jesus Christ. Not very generous there. Anyway, there are other depictions of these gentlemen, and they're huge. So that would keep you up at night. So anyway, that's the real fucking, that's the ultimate fucking fucking thing there. Yeah. What does above mean really? Most people think overhead and sky above, in this case you think above means gym. Yeah, it's true. Well, like I think, and I don't know, again, I'm not acquainted enough with like what physicists are up to right now, but like that their atoms are like, they're moving, like we're all technically vibrating at a specific frequency, like our base, like atoms, whatever the fuck, right? Our quarks and whatever, quarks. But that potentially, and this is just fucking schizo shit, but maybe someone could take this and actually try and figure out what the fuck's going on with reality. Maybe this is one of those like little pieces of tidbits of truth that actually came down through the schizo fucking, the schizo vine, right? That they're vibrating faster, and that by vibrating quicker, they're able to kind of move into this place that we're not able to access. And that this is perceived as being this like higher place because you're moving at a higher frequency. And that as you move at higher frequencies, I've seen people speculating about this, probably in theoretical physics. And again, I'm not communicating what specifically the theory was, but there's been some work done into this. But it's not really communicated as like different physical dimensions, maybe. But just theoretically, maybe there's like ways to like do different. I don't know. It's out of my pay grade. Like it's not something I know about. So, but yeah, Unreal Engine 11 will probably be so close to simulation. That's exactly fucking right. Yeah, I can't wait for that, man. I'll drop this message, giving a shout out to Nick Land, CCRU acceleration and neo-reactionaries for when in a post-nuclear holocaust, post-civilian invasion, a new feudal system is installed. Oh fuck yeah, Jesus Christ, yeah that. Yeah, that's kind of what we're going through right now, though, right? We're kind of in the process of that occurring right now. There's going to be this new feudal system that comes in. So, for the after time, right? That's the whole purpose. Like, they need their serfs to fucking till the land. Although the land's not going to have any nitrogen in it, so there's not going to be a lot of food. Okay, that's how they'll keep us all in check. Rule 34, yeah. Like the Flash and Multiverse, Earth 2 vibrates. Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's essentially it. That's the woo. But I know there is a basis in that like isn't woo, I guess. So who knows if one originated of the other, or there's some connection between the two legitimately. But yeah, that's exactly correct. That but that Earth 2 that vibrates at a different, but it's at a higher frequency, literally, and that this is in ufology. Strictly, this is not fucking science from fucking Jim, but this is literally vibrating at a higher frequency, and that higher frequency then puts it into this other dimension, or at least perceived dimension from us, and that you've got maybe different Earths. Oh, I don't know how this would work in a planet. I just all fucking deeply schizo shit, but that is what's going on. That's what they're doing. So if anybody knows of any theories or is in physics or has heard that, making that connection could potentially be important, because there's a lot of that talk in the abduction phenomena that I've read constantly. It's like they get very spiritual about it, where they're like, well, yeah, it has to do with like your spirit too, and like if you're ready to go to those higher dimensions. It's like, okay, like all right, like fucking right, like sign us up, like what's needed. And then it's like, well, you have to have a service to other mentality. And listen, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. Like we all hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and we go up. Like, can we fucking do that now, please? Jesus Christ. Like, things are about to go fucking nuclear here. Like, but anyway, yeah. Speaking of Stanton, I saw an article too featuring him in this hippie underground. Oh fuck yeah, yeah. Well, I'll do a whole collection, man. When you post more of them, we'll just do a fucking whole stream about them. I was reading through some of them. While reading through again some of the stuff you posted. But yeah, it's very interesting. That'd be really cool, actually, yeah, to see that. Like, what people's perspective of him back then was. Be kind of an interesting read through, like, just to, like, how people received him. Because I'm assuming he had a lot, man, the amount of flack he must have fucking caught from people back then would have been astronomical. The hippie community is probably more open to it, but, like, there would have been so much shit that guy would have endured. And he just, like, because he was so smart and because he was fairly accredited, I think people just kind of shut the fuck up, like, usually. But, man, it must have been hard for him and his family sometimes, yeah. That's a good question, Naaman. Here, I can find one for you. There you go. Here we go, right here, look there. That's what it looks like. There they are. Now, you know what's actually funny about this? Do you want to know what's really funny about this? You know what's a fucking trip about all this? No, please stop zooming in like that. Okay. This is obviously a fucking meme here. But there have been people, I'll just say this, that have had visions. So there's this guy I ran into on YouTube, right? And he's one of these guys, very spiritual guy, does like, lucid dreaming and like astral projecting and all this stuff. And He calls himself a Gnostic, which are what the original followers, I think, of Jesus called themselves, like a knower of things. Anyway, he and he's not alone. I've heard this from other people over the years that have had visions, you know, and also have had what sound like and what were, I think, like abduction experiences. Well, I don't know what they actually were, but that they had these visions of the future, that there was going to be this cataclysm that took place, and afterwards the earth was going to be in such rough shape that survivors, essentially that were worthy, this is where stuff gets a little bit sketchy, you know, that were of the right orientation ethically, right, would be aided by ETs and our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters, and they would give us, we would essentially be living on these platforms up in like the upper atmosphere that would be shielded, because the entire ground, the entire surface of the earth would be completely decimated, and there'd be volcanic ash, and it wouldn't really be conducive for living or growing anything. So that these visitors would then take us up into these sky globes, and that we would live in these things. This is something that, again, it's been something that people have recounted, I'll say, in some of these reports, and that other people have seen, had visions of, had dreams about, which I find very intriguing. Again, I find the idea of catastrophism extremely intriguing, titillating, tantalizing, tantalizing and titillating. But this is very fucking out there. But man, I don't know, like, that'd be fucking sick. Look at that. So anyway, I thought this was going to be some fucking meme name and just fucking say, well, what's going to look like when we vibrationally ascend. It's usually like all this like cringe fucking like shit where these guys are just like, they're just all like love and stuff, and like this all white light, and all the aliens are there, the cat people are there, the fucking the mantis people, the bug people are there. That guy who fucking what's his name again? The guy, the space weed guys there, fucking, they're all fucking there. But that this is a woo thing that people have seen. This guy made a post about Hercolubus on YouTube, and he had a fairly decent following. He's Canadian. He had like a couple 100,000 people on his YouTube channel, and he was talking about this object that he kept seeing in his visions that he called Hercolubus, which was this great comet that was going to cause a catastrophe in our lifetimes. And Hercolubus is a name that this guy, Carlos Ferrata, gave it. He was this kind of woo-woo astronomer down in South America that talked about this object, this comet coming back in. And so he was telling his followers that he was having visions of this catastrophe in our lifetimes by this object. And I just commented and said, hey, bro, like, philosopher, I'm into this kind of schizo stuff. And I said, I've looked into this somewhat. I said, that's very interesting. And I wasn't being like a dick or anything. I was just like, this is legitimately, again, I find those schizo stories, to me, that's what that is. But that he was having these visions of this cataclysm by this object. And then afterwards, these visitors aiding us. And they're aiding us, survivors, and that they're going to help us set up this new civilization. But temporarily, while the earth heals from the cataclysm, this is what things are going to look like. And this artist rendition, you could probably almost go down and see it. This is something to do with the Pleiadians, but this is what has been recounted by some people. It's just interesting that this is the flying up in the upper atmosphere and these like bubbles. Who knows? Sick shit. That'd be fucking sick. That's all I really have to say, I guess. The 144,000, reference to the 140,000 all over the place, like 7 earlier in the stream. Really? Interesting. Well, the sacred geometry, frequency theory, etc. Synchronicity. Have you experienced a Kundalini awakening and are independent of if you want to confirm it or not? Do you think that it is detrimental to speak about sacred secrets openly? The recurring thought that if no one comes out like Kanye publicly teaching people, it is because there is like a karmic law preventing major enlightening and shit. A Kundalini experienced, yes, yeah. I've heard many people speak about these kinds of things. Jacques just spoke about this with Gary Nolan, Jacques Vallée, but some kind of awakening. I don't know. It's like, do you think it's a detrimental speak about sacred secrets? I have to be honest, no. I don't like secrets. personally, I'm someone that likes just facing things honestly, even if it's detrimental maybe to my health mentally. I feel like I would rather just know. And that objectively might be a bad idea sometimes, because that could throw you off from your path maybe, right? If you end up like knowing a little bit too much about a thing. But I think honestly, like, I don't like the idea of secrets. I think people should know these kinds of things. Let's just say, for instance, there is this event on the horizon, and there's a group of elite type people that, in anticipation of this unstoppable natural event, decided to start releasing viruses to try and get the population down and try and control everybody. I think that's terrible. I think empowering people with that knowledge, as difficult as that would be to face, to know that probably for many people they might face death, that would be something I think that'd be. Now, people might argue with me on that if like you're in the military and you're like, fuck, like, don't fucking tell. Maybe there'd be like a reason why, but I think honestly, at some point, I would rather confront this kind of stuff. I mean, I think it would absolutely be detrimental, but I think that would outweigh the negatives of not knowing, honestly. I think being ignorant to it would just be would ultimately be very, very detrimental. Especially if it's something earth-shattering, literally. I feel like that would just be, I don't know. It would be a great travesty, really, to keep that from people. And not that I'm saying that that's what's coming. I don't know, right? I don't want to be some fucking doomsayer on here, that this is coming. And I can pull stuff up that definitely will, I can make an argument for that. That's a little bit more grounded probably about like a cycle. And, I've had conversations with a couple people who are, fairly knowledgeable with, orbital dynamics that, push back a little bit. And I was glad for that because it relieved some of my anxiety. And I said, oh, thank God. Thank God that this 3,600 year thing doesn't make any sense, because it was starting to worry me for a second there. Yeah, man, it's like fucking, I don't know. Yeah. But, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. It's coming upon a new knowledge too. Yes. It's like, and with these kinds of conversations on these kinds of topics, it's like, you get into like intuition and what intuition is, and you get into like anything or anybody breaking any new ground in anything. It's usually based on some kind of intuition. And, in regards to these kinds of topics, I mean, there's a lot of people have an intuition with this kind of stuff, not even like catastrophic events, but ufology. I think we all have had this intuition clearly that there's just something going on with this. And although none of us know for sure, that intuition has guided us. And I think it's so strong that it's led people to be very convicted that there's something to this. And I think there's a point where like the anecdotal evidence builds up where you're just like, okay, it's overwhelming. Like, this is not just a delusion, right? Like, yeah, but there's no lock. We're all distant Cali as well as sending. The truth is out there for the true seekers to find. Exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it, man. And that's kind of what I think we're all in pursuit of here, which is truth. That's kind of what I'm really after, honestly. There's no ego tied to any of this stuff with me either. And I try, even with ufology, I try and reiterate that I'm not into this or speaking about this or wanting this to be true so that I look good to people. Like, as someone who always spoke openly about these things, there's tons of people who are like, oh yeah, Jim's the alien guy. It's like, I don't want to I'm not looking to prove people wrong or be right. I could give a single fuck. I always have, which is why I spoke about it openly to begin with. Like, I couldn't give a fuck. Like, I saw there was truth in this. I just want to find the truth because I'm just wired that way, that I just want to know. And again, maybe that is detrimental. Yes, too, in regards to, maybe it's ultimately been detrimental, probably to some degree. But anyway, that's a part of just being a human being too. I think that it's like, we're just after it, right? And in regards to truth, I mean, it's just something that I value objectively, and I'm into truth, and I don't like living in the unknown, and I like just like figuring things out. And I wasn't a huge fan of puzzles as a kid, but as I've gotten older, I'm into these kinds of puzzles, certainly. Yeah, leaning towards manifestation and karma in and on the way. As long as positive, it works. Yeah, flow like water, my friend. Absolutely, man. The occult in the domain of the eighth house, so not all people want to find the truth or have an impulse to it in this lifetime. Interesting. Yeah, it's a higher thing to aspire towards, I think, right, man? Right, Serpentine? I think it's definitely one of those higher things, right? That, you know, it's it's something I think for people who are philosophers, who are in philosophy, who like that. It's something I think I'm a huge fan of archetypes. I love Jung's archetypes. And I think there are just archetypes of people out there, like the way our brains are wired. Like there are people who end up being engineers, or people who end up being maybe psychics, or people who end up being fucking like great communicators of science, astrophysicists, or there are people who end up being like philosophers. And I think philosophy in general is a discipline of just people who are obsessed with the truth and finding the truth. And I ended up being one of those people personally. And I think there's many other people like that in here as well, actually. And ufology is one of those like ultimate truths. Like you can't not be fucking just mesmerized by the idea that these advanced beings are here. And they're so advanced, they're godlike, they've been communicating with us through these kind of metaphysical means. That whole narrative is just like I would argue so many people from the past that have been very well established. Like if Plato or Socrates, or these are characters I am familiar with because this is a topic I love, but many other different characters from different disciplines. If you don't think that they'd be fucking obsessed, like if you really think they're going to sit down at university and read through all this old shit, they're going to be looking at this fucking shit all day long and be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, look what's going on. Like, what is this? Like, I've always felt that I feel like that this is such a draw, and you know, it's just confounded me as to why more people haven't taken it seriously, or at least like given it its due. It's hard to find reasons as to why they wouldn't provoke an apocalypse and provoking it again to become the Anunnaki in the world. Yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a true side, you know, because, you know, in our true scientists need to test. Fuck yeah, there you go. Maybe at my heart, you know, I don't know. I don't think I'm particular enough for science, but the method, man, I don't know. Like, I think all of us are kind of definitely, you know, we have that spirit here where we just want to fucking figure stuff out. We just want to know. We just want to, I don't know. I just have an intuition there's something to this. I think as many of you here do as well. And I would just very much like to see the world become kind of enlightened and to the state that it's in, to kind of wrap this up about like the whole disease X thing. And I think with this too, many of us have seen kind of the evil in the world and the bullshit. And I would just like to see kind of humanity rise up out of this fucking nightmare. Not that there isn't good in the world. There's far more good than there is evil. But this dream that we've kind of been in, I'd like to see us wake up out of that. And I feel like this topic has something to do with maybe how that's going to happen, how we're going to kind of awaken, literally as a species. And that's just an intuition I have, and I think many people here have as well, right? That this is something that I think we all feel is important, and that is going to lead to that kind of awakening, and that we're on the precipice of it. So, yeah, we just have to kind of cross our fingers. And I do think it's. I think this is, if I'm the bet, and I will make this bet, and I've made bets in the past and been fucking wrong, but that's the thing about betting and gambling. I would bet this is the year that the shit all fucking starts to unwind. I really feel that 100%. Actually, it's gonna all fucking unwind. I just hope it's not too big of a mess. So, yeah, man, absolutely though, absolutely, yeah, and and again, we're in for one here, I think, and it's only a matter of time. Hopefully, we just don't lose this great medium to communicate with, the internet. That's my only concern. But anyway, until next time, everybody. Thank you for coming around. Great talking with all of you. Great conversation, honestly. So grateful for everybody to come in here and speak with. So many brilliant people here. I truly appreciate it, guys. So, yeah. I mean, 4 documentaries of like 1.5 hours each kind of intention. Oh, man. You share that shit, too. Yeah, fuck. Great meeting you, DS. Yeah. And everybody here, thank you again. Yeah. And tune in tomorrow night. Me and Galen TV will be on here talking about some schizo stuff for like Manic Monday. So, everybody, as always, take care. Peace.